America's #1 news source.
I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. A celebration is set to begin in just a little while from the White House to commemorate Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's historic Supreme Court confirmation. President Biden and Vice President Harris are set to speak on the South Lawn, as well as Judge Jackson herself. We will bring you the White House event live when it happens. And this comes one day after the Senate voted 53-47 to confirm Jackson. She and President Biden watched the confirmation proceedings from the White House and embraced when that final vote was tallied. We will have more on this historic confirmation in a moment. But first, Russia is accused of launching a new devastating attack on civilians, targeting a train station that served as an evacuation point in southeastern Ukraine. We want to warn you, some of these images are difficult to watch. Ukrainian officials say 2 rockets hit the station this morning, killing at least 50 people and injuring 100 more. They say 4,000 evacuees were at that train station at the time, trying to escape the fighting. Video posted to social media yesterday shows people packed outside the station. You can see just how busy it was before the attack. It comes as Ukraine's government braces for a major Russian offensive in the southeastern part of the country. Foreign correspondent James Longman has the latest from Kyiv.
The Kramatorsk train station in Donetsk hit. Civilians have been crowding the station every day after they were warned to evacuate before Russia's renewed offensive in eastern Ukraine. The attack left at least 39 dead and 87 wounded. Speaking before NATO, Ukraine's foreign minister has warned that the battle for the region will be devastating.
The battle for Donbas will remind you of Second World War, with large operations, maneuvers, involvement of thousands of tanks, armored vehicles, planes, artillery.
President Zelensky calling for even bolder sanctions and additional military help, saying Ukraine needs weapons that will allow us to win on the battlefield, and this will be the strongest sanction against Russia of all possible ones. They want to stop a repeat of this. The northern town of Borodyanka reduced to rubble by Russian planes. Recovery teams finding bodies under flattened homes on a near daily basis. Ukrainian President Zelensky warning the findings here could be worse than the atrocities already uncovered in Bucha. We saw for ourselves the horror in that town. Bodan took us inside this apartment building, which he says was struck by the Russians. He shows us his friend, incinerated by the blaze it caused. He tells us, "I want the whole world to know the truth about what's happening here," he says. "I only blame the Russian military for this." Maria cries in the kitchen of her Bucha home, remembering her son Dima, shot dead, she says, by Russian forces. He would run up and down helping people down in the basement, she says.
I can tell that she's very proud of him.
How can I not be proud of my son when he was such a great person? Russia has been voted off the United Nations Human Rights Council, and now the European Union has approved a 5th round of sanctions, freezing the assets of several Russian banks, banning coal imports, and banning access to EU ports for ships flying the Russian flag. A major admission from Russia.
We have significant losses of troops, and it's a huge tragedy for us.
The true number of Russian losses is difficult to know, but the US estimates more than 10,000 have been killed. And Russian attacks elsewhere continue. In Kharkiv, black plumes of smoke in the sky after another Russian missile attack strikes a bread factory.
Ukraine has done an extraordinary job of defending itself so far with Western help, but the fight in the east will be very different. Russia already occupies large parts of that region. They'll be better able to supply and to support their troops, and that is why Ukraine is asking for more help now. Diane?
All right, James, thank you. And today the White House is celebrating the historic confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. The Senate approved Judge Jackson in a 53-47 vote yesterday, clearing the way for her to become the first black woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court. ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer joins me now for more on this. Devin, President Biden and Vice President Harris are expected to speak today. What can we expect to hear from them?
Diane, this is very much a political victory lap for this White House. And officials I've talked to say this is going to be effectively checking the box on 2 major Biden promises. First, a promise that we all have talked about on the campaign trail that he would nominate the first black woman justice, but also as president that he would pick someone who is in the mold of Justice Stephen Breyer, a well-respected liberal jurist who has been on the court for a quarter century, someone who's a pragmatist, who's a moderate, and certainly Ketanji Brown Jackson checks that box. So today's very much about marking those moments, Diane.
And Devin, Jackson will also be the first federal public defender and the first Florida-raised judge on the Supreme Court. How might that have an impact on some of the high-profile cases the court will hear in her first session?
Well, there's no question that this is a conservative Supreme Court. It is solidly conservative, 6 justices there. Her addition certainly won't change that ideological makeup, but she's going to be there for a long time. Keep in mind, Ketanji Brown Jackson, just 51 years old, the second youngest justice. She could be on the court for 30 plus years. And so when a new justice ascends to the bench, they take the long game. She will obviously take some time to adjust to get her legs, but she could see several shifts in the balance of power over her lifetime on the bench. And so it's very early to predict and project just how she will leave her mark, how she will change the court's jurisprudence over that time. But suffice it to say, her friends and colleagues I've spoken to, Diane, say she is very much a consensus builder. She's disarming, she's collegial, and she has vowed to take that personality trait really behind the curtain at the court to try to engage her soon-to-be new colleagues.
And Devin, when you think about the history of this moment, we're about to see the first female and first black vice president speak to celebrate the confirmation of the first female black Supreme Court justice. What do you think about that moment, both in terms of the history and the politics?
It's remarkable, Diane. I mean, and I think, you know, at a certain point, you know, we just can't say it enough. I mean, and not only remarkable because of the fact of her race and gender in a judiciary across the board, not just of the Supreme Court, that is overwhelmingly white and male. For her to be at this moment, for the country to be at this moment is something, but she also brings so much groundbreaking, diverse experience and background to the bench, which I consider also significant. You mentioned them earlier. The first Florida-raised judge on there grew up in Miami, the daughter of public school teachers. So that she'll bring that experience to the table. The first federal public defender. That's significant. She has actually had firsthand experience representing everyday Americans in the judicial system who can't afford an attorney. A critical part of our constitutional process. She has seen that and lived that firsthand. She's also a trial judge. Many of the current justices were former government prosecutors. She will bring that experience, very fact-based experience as a trial judge to the bench as well. So all of those dimensions of her resume and her, her portfolio, I think will truly enhance the Supreme Court, aside from ideology and politics, Diane.
And Devin, most Republican senators left the hall after the vote as Democrats celebrated the confirmation. What are you hearing about that moment?
You know, a lot of people I've talked to, Diane, are simply shaking their heads at what they saw yesterday in that Senate chamber. Not so much pointing the finger at Republicans, but just the fact that these theatrics by both sides of the aisle, both political parties in these confirmation battles have become so commonplace now. It's really, I think, a testament to how low things have gotten in these battles just in the past, decade, 2 decades or so. To see Mitt Romney, the only Republican, stay in the chamber, continue to applaud, really says a lot about his party right now. Of course, only 3 Republicans supporting Ketanji Brown Jackson, but it was certainly a remarkable moment at a time when both parties say they want the court to look more like the country, and this moment certainly reflects that.
And Devin, we keep hearing about new positive COVID-19 cases in Washington. Speaker Pelosi is just one of several federal lawmakers. So will that affect the events planned for today?
You know, Diane, I was just thinking back to the last White House Supreme Court event that became a super spreader. Amy Coney Barrett, you remember that in the Rose Garden with President Trump? It actually ended up rocking the White House, all the participants there. This is certainly a different moment, different point in the pandemic, but here we are again, official Washington rocked by a number of cases. Cabinet officials, White House officials, press secretaries have come down with COVID. This event this afternoon will be held outside. It will be on the South Lawn. It's beautiful. But I think we can expect to see a few more masks in that crowd, Diane, and also one of the 3 Republicans who voted for Ketanji Brown Jackson will not be there. Susan Collins, she came down with COVID-19. Diane.
All right, Devin Dwyer, thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Coming up, the latest details on the Secret Service scandal sparking national security concerns. What authorities say was found in the home of the 2 men accused of impersonating federal agents when we come back. Welcome back. Two men accused of impersonating federal agents and giving gifts to Secret Service agents are due back in court today after prosecutors described finding a stash of weapons in their possession. The men said they had no money for a lawyer, so investigators are trying to figure out where their funding came from and what they may have been planning. Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz has the latest.
Stunning new allegations about the two men accused of brazenly impersonating Homeland Security agents and duping members of the Secret Service. Allegations now sparking national security concerns. The men in court yesterday. Federal prosecutors saying that over the course of 2 years, Haider Ali, along with his accomplice Aryan Taherzadeh, provided Secret Service agents with lavish gifts, free apartments totaling $40,000, iPhones, a flat-screen TV, surveillance systems, and that Taherzadeh offered to buy a $2,000 assault rifle for a member of the First Lady's protective detail. The government saying one of the men claimed to have a connection to the ISI, which is the Pakistani intelligence service, and that agents found visas showing a history of travel to Pakistan and Iran. 4 Secret Service employees are now suspended. The investigation still underway. FBI agents seen gathering evidence at the D.C. apartment building where the defendants allegedly operated. And prosecutors say searches of their homes and cars have already turned up weapons, ammunition, body armor, gas masks, a drone, and a binder with a list of every resident in their D.C. apartment complex. Neighbors shaken.
It's scary, it's our place of living. I just came home and then there's FBI agents. I'm like, what's going on?
A detention hearing is scheduled for today to determine whether the men should remain locked up. But with all those unanswered questions, prosecutors would very much like to see the men stay behind bars. Diane?
All right, Martha Raddatz, thank you. And let's bring in ABC News contributor Donald Mihalik, a former senior special agent for the U.S. Secret Service, for more on this. Donald, 4 Secret Service agents have been suspended for allegedly accepting thousands of dollars worth of gifts, in some cases free apartments. So how concerning is that?
The whole situation is very concerning because these 2 suspects, we don't know where the money came from. We don't know where they got the resources, where they got the identifications. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. So the whole situation is very concerning.
Now, Secret Service agents are some of the most elite and experienced law enforcement officers in the country. So how surprised are you to hear these allegations that they were fooled by these alleged imposters?
So there's an inherent trust within the law enforcement community. When you meet other law enforcement officers, there's that inherent trust of you accept people for who they say they are, especially if they're showing you that they have the gear, the resources, and the identifications. That they're a law enforcement officer. Typically, agents and police officers don't ask each other to see identification. Having said that, though, looking at these 2 suspects, what they had, where they got it from, where the resources came from, the whole situation is extremely perplexing.
And what do we know at this point about how this was finally uncovered?
According to the criminal complaint, there was a postal inspector that had an investigation that brought him to that building, and that culminated in the discovery that these 2 individuals were impersonating HSI agents. And then the investigation carried on from there to show that they then were interacting with Secret Service agents that were living in the building. I should say 3 Secret Service agents and an HSI personnel.
So where does the investigation stand now? Where do they go from here?
Well, if you read the complaint identifies the Secret Service agents and the HSI official as witnesses. So my guess is they're cooperating with the investigation, and they're probably also perplexed about how this all happened. The FBI is, of course, going to dive into this and figure out, was this counterintelligence? Was this criminal? Or was this just 2 people that took advantage of a situation? And I know that the Secret Service and the DHS Inspector General are going to dive into this investigation to figure out what happened and if there was any issues and close those gaps that they identify.
All right, Donald Mihalik, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Nancy Pelosi is among more than a dozen lawmakers who have now tested positive for COVID-19. The latest on the COVID outbreak in the Capitol when we come back. Welcome back to ABC News Live. Congresswoman Raja Krishnamurthy is the latest federal lawmaker to test positive for COVID this week, joining more than a dozen others as concerns of an outbreak in the nation's capital grow. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is in quarantine after testing positive for COVID, and we're told she is not experiencing symptoms. President Biden and Pelosi were seen side by side at two separate events earlier this week. The White House says the president tested negative on Wednesday night and is not considered a close contact based on the latest CDC guidelines. Authorities in Israel say they've killed the gunman who killed 2 people and wounded 10 others on a busy street in Tel Aviv on Thursday. The Israeli prime minister called it a terrorist attack. At least 11 people have been killed over the past 2 weeks in a string of attacks in Israel. ISIS has claimed responsibility for most of those attacks, but those claims have not been confirmed. An investigation is underway after a DHL cargo plane skidded off the runway and split into 2 pieces yesterday in Costa Rica. The aircraft was reportedly headed to Guatemala when the pilot requested an emergency landing shortly after takeoff. Officials say no one was injured. And inflation is hitting the wine industry. Prices are going up again due to an increase in the price of glass bottles. Some winemakers say they're paying as much as 20% more. Their best advice? Check around for sales. And scientists are now learning more about how COVID is affecting people long term. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are so-called COVID long haulers, some now battling crippling COVID symptoms for more than 2 years. Ika Jachi has an inside look at a state-of-the-art clinic helping long haulers rehabilitate.
The sights and sounds of New York City couldn't be brighter or louder than the scenes you'll see on Broadway. Just take Joel Fram's word for it.
Conducting is such an amazing experience.
For almost 30 years, on any given night, there's a good chance you'll find him leading a full orchestra for some of the biggest plays on Broadway.
I've worked on Cats, I've worked on Wicked, I'm currently conducting Company. What is wrong? You have to almost be psychically connected to everything around you, to the performances that are going on stage, to how people are doing their songs.
Not a lot of people realize how much work actually goes into conducting. What's a typical day for you?
You get to the point where it reaches the stage, and then you get really long hours. Someone is asking you to create, problem solve, make art for 12 straight hours. And in a way, it's exhausting, but also in a way, it's incredibly rewarding.
Joel was living his dream, but like so many other stories across the country, it was interrupted. What happened March 2020?
On a Wednesday, I remember at dinner feeling kind of chilled, thinking, is it cold in here? On the Thursday, I woke up and I had such a high fever and felt so sick.
Broadway was shut down, and so was Joel, putting his return to the orchestra pit in jeopardy. He tested positive for COVID-19 and was experiencing severe symptoms. But after a few weeks, Joel recovered. Back to normal.
Back to as normal as it could be, knowing that we were locked down and that there was no job to go to.
Just 1 month later, after feeling fine, his symptoms returned in the most unimaginable way.
Not only did I have fatigue, but I had terrible joint pain, which for a conductor is and a pianist is a very terrifying thing. I started to get ocular migraines, so I would have this ring of pain around my left eye that would just be really debilitating.
And how long do those symptoms last?
Well, I'm still not completely clear of them.
Joel was experiencing the beginning of his battle with long COVID, what's now known as post-acute COVID-19 syndrome, clinical symptoms that occur 4 weeks after initial COVID symptoms. While the numbers have varied, studies indicate that up to 30% of COVID-19 patients experience symptoms up to 9 months after recovering.
Heart rate looks good, oxygen looks good.
New York City's Mount Sinai Hospital has transformed part of its research center into the Center for Post-COVID Care. It's now been open for nearly 2 years. Dr. Jenna Tosto-Mancuso has been working with Joel since the onset of his symptoms.
We are at 6 minutes, so let's take a minute here and work on your breathing. And you can slow your legs if it's going past that 2 out of 10 on the exertion scale.
And like at Mount Sinai, health experts from around the globe continue to uncover more about this disease.
This is still a really, really mysterious condition. It really does affect every single organ system.
Dr. Susan Cheng is one of the leading researchers studying post-COVID and says you can experience a range of symptoms. Right now, experts have linked more than 200 different symptoms to the condition.
For some people, it is mainly pulmonary or chest pain. In other patients, it's very much neurological or neurocognitive. And in other patients, it's more GI.
Dr. Cheng says doctors are still studying post-acute COVID-19 syndrome, with little-known options for treatment often affecting patients' daily lives.
In the patients that have enrolled into some of our studies, we'd say probably up to half have been able to return to work. A quarter have been able to return to only part-time work, and a quarter haven't been able to return to any work. And that's months and months later.
Where are we exertion-wise?
So I feel like this is about a 3.
Okay.
And the painstaking work goes on at Mount Sinai with thousands of post-COVID patients like Joel, now 2 years into this pandemic and trying to get their lives back to normal again. It's both a mental and physical process. It's like you're teaching his heart how to work again, right?
Teaching his body how to work again, which is really the most unique process. But what we've really come to realize is that a patient-centered approach that progressively introduces activity back into day-to-day life, that really targets energy conservation strategies with the goal of slowly but surely rebuilding, I think that in and of itself is the bread and butter of our rehab program.
At the beginning, I was insane. I thought, this isn't working. But I just focused on breathing and lowering my heart rate.
Dr. Tasto Mancuso says the best way to treat post-COVID is gradually increasing a patient's tolerance for exercise, all while mindful of the possibility that symptoms could return and flare up. For Joel, what started as simple exercises lying down eventually led to minutes on the stationary bike.
There is still more to go. You know, I am still, for instance, at the gym at the 8-minute, 2-minute, 8-minute stage. But eventually, I want to be at the 25-minute stage where you work out in a way that is expected of most people and not flare my symptoms.
It took months, but it worked. When Broadway opened back up later that fall, Joel was right in the center of it, doing what he loved.
I did go back to work in October, and I did work 8-hour rehearsal days, and then 12-hour rehearsal days, and then 16-hour rehearsal days. And I happily had the support of my music team, who, if ever I needed to take a moment, could take over for me. But I found that I was able to do my job as long as I managed my energy window.
Our thanks to Ike Ejachi for that report. I'm Diane Macedo. Do stay with us as ABC News Live continues with news, context, and analysis.
It's hard to live your life on a reality show and then say, I want certain things to be private.
Kim, Courtney, Chloe, and Chris. The new interview that'll have everyone talking.
Let us talk about relationships.
Oh, my Lord.
What do they now want you to know?
Trying to think of how I even answer that. Oh, my gosh.
And what led to this?
Don't make me cry.
The Kardashians, streaming on ABC News Live.
Putin's war, the atrocities, the unthinkable. Could it get even worse? Now as Russia digs in, fears grow. What more can the world do? Sunday on ABC's This Week.
I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. A celebration is set to begin in just a little while from the White House to commemorate Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's historic Supreme Court confirmation. President Biden and Vice President Harris are set to speak on the South Lawn, as well as Judge Jackson herself. We will bring you the White House event live when it happens. And this comes one day after the Senate voted 53-47 to confirm Jackson. She and President Biden watched the confirmation proceedings from the White House and embraced when that final vote was tallied. We will have more on this historic confirmation in a moment. But first, Russia is accused of launching a new devastating attack on civilians, targeting a train station that served as an evacuation point in southeastern Ukraine. We want to warn you, some of these images are difficult to watch. Ukrainian officials say 2 rockets hit the station this morning, killing at least 50 people and injuring 100 more. They say 4,000 evacuees were at that train station at the time, trying to escape the fighting. Video posted to social media yesterday shows people packed outside the station. You can see just how busy it was before the attack. It comes as Ukraine's government braces for a major Russian offensive in the southeastern part of the country. Foreign correspondent James Longman has the latest from Kyiv.
The Kramatorsk train station in Donetsk hit. Civilians have been crowding the station every day after they were warned to evacuate before Russia's renewed offensive in eastern Ukraine. The attack left at least 39 dead and 87 wounded. Speaking before NATO, Ukraine's foreign minister has warned that the battle for the region will be devastating.
The battle for Donbas will remind you was Second World War, with large operations, maneuvers, involvement of thousands of tanks, armored vehicles, planes, artillery.
President Zelensky calling for even bolder sanctions and additional military help, saying Ukraine needs weapons that will allow us to win on the battlefield, and this will be the strongest sanction against Russia of all possible ones. They want to stop a repeat of this. The northern town of Borodyanka reduced to rubble by Russian planes. Recovery teams finding bodies under flattened homes on a near daily basis. Ukrainian President Zelensky warning the findings here could be worse than the atrocities already uncovered in Bucha. We saw for ourselves the horror in that town. Bodan took us inside this apartment building, which he says was struck by the Russians. He shows us his friend, incinerated by the blaze it caused. He tells us, I want the whole world to know the truth about what's happening here, he says. I only blame the Russian military for this. Maria cries in the kitchen of her Bucha home, remembering her son Dima, shot dead, she says, by Russian forces. He would run up and down, helping people down in the basement, she says.
I can tell that she's very proud of him.
How can I not be proud of my son when he was such a great person? Russia has been voted off the United Nations Human Rights Council, and now the European Union has approved a 5th round of sanctions, freezing the assets of several Russian banks, banning coal imports, and banning access to EU ports for ships flying the Russian flag. A major admission from Russia.
We have significant losses of troops, and it's a huge tragedy for us.
The true number of Russian losses is difficult to know, but the US estimates more than 10,000 have been killed. And Russian attacks elsewhere continue. In Kharkiv, black plumes of smoke in the sky after another Russian missile attack strikes a bread factory.
Ukraine has done an extraordinary job of defending itself so far with Western help, but the fight in the east will be very different. Russia already occupies large parts of that region. They'll be better able to supply and to support their troops, and that is why Ukraine is asking for more help now. Diane?
All right, James, thank you. And today the White House is celebrating the historic confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. The Senate approved Judge Jackson in a 53-47 vote yesterday, clearing the way for her to become the first black woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court. ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer joins me now for more on this. Devin, President Biden and Vice President Harris are expected to speak today. What can we expect to hear from them?
Diane, this is very much a political victory lap for this White House. And officials I've talked to say this is going to be effectively checking the box on two major Biden promises. First, a promise that we all have talked about on the campaign trail that he would nominate the first black woman justice, but also as president that he would pick someone who is in the mold of Justice Stephen Breyer, a well-respected liberal jurist who has been on the court for a quarter century, someone who's a pragmatist, who's a moderate, and certainly Ketanji Brown Jackson checks that box. So today's very much about marking those moments, Diane.
And Devin, Jackson will also be the first federal public defender and the first Florida-raised judge on the Supreme Court. How might that have an impact on some of the high-profile cases the court will hear in her first session?
Well, there's no question that this is a conservative Supreme Court. It is solidly conservative, 6 justices there. Her addition certainly won't change that ideological makeup, but she's going to be there for a long time. Keep in mind, Ketanji Brown Jackson, just 51 years old, the second youngest justice. She could be on the court for 30-plus years. And so when a new justice ascends to the bench, they take the long game. She will obviously take some time to adjust to get her legs, but she could see several shifts in the balance of power over her lifetime on the bench. And so it's very early to predict and project just how she will leave her mark, how she will change the court's jurisprudence over that time. But suffice it to say, her friends and colleagues I've spoken to, Diane, say she is very much a consensus builder. She's disarming, she's collegial, and she has vowed to take that personality trait really behind the curtain at the court to try to engage her new, soon-to-be new colleagues.
And Devin, when you think about the history of this moment, we're about to see the first female and first black vice president speak to celebrate the confirmation of the first female black Supreme Court justice. What do you think about that moment, both in terms of the history and the politics?
It's remarkable, Diane. I mean, and I think, you know, at a certain point, you know, we just can't say it enough. I mean, and not only remarkable because of the fact of her race and gender in a judiciary across the board, not just as the Supreme Court, that is overwhelmingly white and male. For her to be at this moment, for the country to be at this moment is something, but she also brings so much groundbreaking, diverse experience and background to the bench, which I consider also significant. You mentioned them earlier, the first Florida-raised judge on there, grew up in Miami, the daughter of public school teachers, so that she'll bring that experience to the table. The first federal public defender, that's significant. She has actually had firsthand experience representing everyday Americans in the judicial system who can't afford an attorney. A critical part of our constitutional process. She has seen that and lived that firsthand. She's also a trial judge. Many of the current justices were former government prosecutors. She will bring that experience, very fact-based experience as a trial judge to the bench as well. So all of those dimensions of her resume and her, her portfolio, I think will truly enhance the Supreme Court, aside from ideology and politics, Diane.
And Devin, most Republican senators left the hall after the vote as Democrats celebrated the confirmation. What are you hearing about that moment?
You know, a lot of people I've talked to, Diane, are simply shaking their heads at what they saw yesterday in that Senate chamber. Not so much pointing the finger at Republicans, but just the fact that these theatrics by both sides of the aisle, both political parties in these confirmation battles have become so commonplace now. It's really, I think, a testament to how low things have gotten in these battles just in the past, decade, 2 decades or so. To see Mitt Romney, the only Republican, stay in the chamber, continue to applaud, really says a lot about his party right now. Of course, only 3 Republicans supporting Ketanji Brown Jackson, but it was certainly a remarkable moment at a time when both parties say they want the court to look more like the country, and this moment certainly reflects that.
And Devin, we keep hearing about new positive COVID-19 cases in Washington. Speaker Pelosi is just one of several federal lawmakers. So will that affect the events planned for today?
You know, Diane, I was just thinking back to the last White House Supreme Court event that became a super spreader. Amy Coney Barrett, you remember that in the Rose Garden with President Trump? It actually ended up rocking the White House, all the participants there. This is certainly a different moment, different point in the pandemic, but here we are again, official Washington rocked by a number of cases. Cabinet officials, White House officials, press secretaries have come down with COVID. This event this afternoon will be held outside. It will be on the South Lawn. It's beautiful. But I think we can expect to see a few more masks in that crowd, Diane, and also one of the 3 Republicans who voted for Ketanji Brown Jackson will not be there. Susan Collins, she came down with COVID-19. Diane.
All right, Devin Dwyer, thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Coming up, the latest details on the Secret Service scandal sparking national security concerns. What authorities say was found in the home of the 2 men accused of impersonating federal agents when we come back. Welcome back. 2 men accused of impersonating federal agents and giving gifts to Secret Service agents are due back in court today after prosecutors described finding a stash of weapons in their possession. The men said they had no money for a lawyer, so investigators are trying to figure out where their funding came from and what they may have been planning. Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz has the latest.
Stunning new allegations about the 2 men accused of brazenly impersonating Homeland Security agents and duping members of the Secret Service. Allegations now sparking national security concerns. The men in court yesterday. Federal prosecutors saying that over the course of 2 years, Haider Ali, along with his accomplice Ariane Taherzadeh, provided Secret Service agents with lavish gifts, free apartments totaling $40,000, iPhones, a flat-screen TV, surveillance systems, and that Taherzadeh offered to buy a $2,000 assault rifle for a member of the First Lady's protective detail. The government saying one of the men claimed to have a connection to the ISI, which is the Pakistani intelligence service, and that agents found visas showing a history of travel to Pakistan and Iran. 4 Secret Service employees are now suspended, the investigation still underway. FBI agents seen gathering evidence at the D.C. apartment building where the defendants allegedly operated. And prosecutors say searches of their homes and cars have already turned up weapons, ammunition, body armor, gas masks, a drone, and a binder with a list of every resident in their D.C. apartment complex. Neighbors shaken.
It's scary, like, you know, it's our place of living. I just came home and then there's FBI agents. I'm like, what's going on?
A detention hearing is scheduled for today to determine whether the men should remain locked up. But with all those unanswered questions, prosecutors would very much like to see the men stay behind bars. Diane?
All right, Martha Raddatz, thank you. And let's bring in ABC News contributor Donald Mihalik, a former senior special agent for the U.S. Secret Service, for more on this. Donald, 4 Secret Service agents have been suspended for allegedly accepting thousands of dollars worth of gifts, in some cases free apartments. So how concerning is that?
The whole situation is very concerning because these 2 suspects, we don't know where the money came from. We don't know where they got the resources, where they got the identifications. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. So the whole situation is very concerning.
Now, Secret Service agents are some of the most elite and experienced law enforcement officers in the country. So how surprised are you to hear these allegations that they were fooled by these alleged imposters?
So there's an inherent trust within the law enforcement community. When you meet other law enforcement officers, there's that inherent trust of you accept people for who they say they are, especially if they're showing you that they have the gear, the resources, and the identifications that they're a law enforcement officer. Typically, agents and police officers don't ask each other to see identification. Having said that, though, looking at these 2 suspects, what they had, where they got it from, where the resources came from, the whole situation is extremely perplexing.
And what do we know at this point about how this was finally uncovered?
According to the criminal complaint, there was a postal inspector that had an investigation that brought him to that building, and that culminated in the discovery that these 2 individuals were impersonating HSI agents. And then the investigation carried on from there to show that they then were interacting with Secret Service agents that were living in the building. I should say 3 Secret Service agents and an HSI personnel.
So where does the investigation stand now? Where do they go from here?
Well, if you read the complaint identifies the Secret Service agents and the HSI official as witnesses. So my guess is they're cooperating with the investigation, and they're probably also perplexed about how this all happened. The FBI is, of course, going to dive into this and figure out, was this counterintelligence? Was this criminal? Or was this just 2 people that took advantage of a situation? And I know that the Secret Service and the DHS Inspector General are going to dive into this investigation to figure out what happened and if there was any issues and close those gaps that they identify.
All right, Donald Mihalik, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Nancy Pelosi is among more than a dozen lawmakers who have now tested positive for COVID-19. The latest on the COVID outbreak in the Capitol when we come back.
A man vanishes without a trace.
This can't be happening.
Stealing $350 million. Bye-bye.
We got a problem here.
It's like, try to catch me if you can.
Sorry about the language, but it's a holy story.
He may be the least likely, most wanted fugitive, well, ever. Now follow the clues on his trail.
Where the is John Rufo?
Have you seen this man?
Putin's war, the atrocities, the unthinkable. Could it get even worse? Now, as Russia digs in, fears grow. What more can the world do? Sunday on ABC's This Week.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy is the latest federal lawmaker to test positive for COVID-19 this week. He joins more than a dozen others as concerns of an outbreak in the nation's capital grow. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is in quarantine after she tested positive as well. We're told she is not experiencing symptoms. President Biden and Pelosi were seen side by side at two separate events earlier this week. The White House says the president tested negative on Wednesday night and is not considered a close contact based on the latest CDC guidelines. Authorities in Israel say they've killed the gunman who killed 2 people and wounded 10 others on a busy street in Tel Aviv on Thursday. The Israeli prime minister called it a terrorist attack. At least 11 people have been killed over the past 2 weeks in a string of attacks in Israel. ISIS has claimed responsibility for most of those attacks, but those claims have not been confirmed. An investigation is underway after a DHL cargo plane skidded off the runway and split into 2 pieces yesterday in Costa Rica. The aircraft was reportedly headed to Guatemala when the pilot requested an emergency landing shortly after takeoff. Officials say no one was injured. And inflation is hitting the wine industry. Prices are going up again due to an increase in the price of glass bottles. Some winemakers say they're paying as much as 20% more. Their best advice? Check around for sales. And scientists are now learning more about how COVID is affecting people long term. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are so-called COVID long haulers, some now battling crippling COVID symptoms for more than 2 years. Ika Jachi has an inside look at a state-of-the-art clinic helping long haulers rehabilitate.
The sights and sounds of New York City couldn't be brighter or louder than the scenes you'll see on Broadway. Just take Joel Fram's word for it.
Conducting is such an amazing experience.
For almost 30 years, on any given night, there's a good chance you'll find him leading a full orchestra for some of the biggest plays on Broadway.
I've worked on Cats, I've worked on Wicked, I'm currently conducting Company. What is wrong? You have to almost be psychically connected to everything around you, to the performances that are going on stage, to how people are doing their songs.
Not a lot of people realize how much work actually goes into conducting. What's a typical day for you?
You get to the point where it reaches the stage, and then you get really long hours. Someone is asking you to create, problem solve, make art for 12 straight hours. And in a way, it's exhausting, but also in a way, it's incredibly rewarding.
Joel was living his dream, but like so many other stories across the country, it was interrupted. What happened March 2020?
On a Wednesday, I remember at dinner feeling kind of chilled, thinking, is it cold in here? On the Thursday, I woke up and I had such a high fever and felt so sick.
Broadway was shut down, and so was Joel, putting his return to the orchestra pit in jeopardy. He tested positive for COVID-19 and was experiencing severe symptoms. But after a few weeks, Joel recovered. Back to normal.
Back to as normal as it could be, knowing that we were locked down and that there was no job to go to.
Just 1 month later, after feeling fine, his symptoms returned in the most unimaginable way.
Not only did I have fatigue, but I had terrible joint pain, which for a conductor is and a pianist is a very terrifying thing. I started to get ocular migraines, so I would have this ring of pain around my left eye that would just be really debilitating.
And how long do those symptoms last?
Well, I'm still not completely clear of them.
Joel was experiencing the beginning of his battle with long COVID, what's now known as post-acute COVID-19 syndrome, clinical symptoms that occur 4 weeks after initial COVID symptoms. While the numbers have varied, studies indicate that up to 30% of COVID-19 patients experience symptoms up to 9 months after recovering.
Heart rate looks good, oxygen looks good.
New York City's Mount Sinai Hospital has transformed part of its research center into the Center for Post-COVID Care. It's now been open for nearly 2 years. Dr. Jenna Tosto-Mancuso has been working with Joel since the onset of his symptoms.
We are at 6 minutes, so let's take a minute here and work on your breathing. And you can slow your legs if it's going past that 2 out of 10 on the exertion scale.
And like at Mount Sinai, health experts from around the globe continue to uncover more about this disease.
This is still a really, really mysterious condition. It really does affect every single organ system.
Dr. Susan Cheng is one of the leading researchers studying post-COVID and says you can experience a range of symptoms. Right now, experts have linked more than 200 different symptoms to the condition.
For some people, it is mainly pulmonary or chest pain. In other patients, it's very much neurological or neurocognitive. And in other patients, it's more GI.
Dr. Cheng says doctors are still studying post-acute COVID-19 syndrome, with little-known options for treatment, often affecting patients' daily lives.
In the patients that have enrolled into some of our studies, we'd say probably up to half have been able to return to work. A quarter have been able to return to only part-time work, and a quarter haven't been able to return to any work. And that's months and months later.
Where are we exertion-wise?
So I feel like this is about a 3.
Okay.
And the painstaking work goes on at Mount Sinai with thousands of post-COVID patients like Joel, now 2 years into this pandemic and trying to get their lives back to normal again. It's both a mental and physical process. It's like you're teaching his heart how to work again, right?
Teaching his body how to work again, which is really the most unique process. But what we've really come to realize is that a patient-centered approach that progressively introduces activity back into day-to-day life, that really targets energy conservation strategies with the goal of slowly but surely rebuilding, I think that in and of itself is the bread and butter of our rehab program.
At the beginning, I was insane. I thought, this isn't working. But I just focused on breathing and lowering my heart rate.
Dr. Tosto-Mancuso says the best way to treat post-COVID is gradually increasing a patient's tolerance for exercise, all while mindful of the possibility that symptoms could return and flare up. For Joel, what started as simple exercises lying down eventually led to minutes on the stationary bike.
There is still more to go. You know, I am still, for instance, at the gym at the 8-minute, 2-minute, 8-minute stage. But eventually, I want to be at the 25-minute stage where you work out in a way that is expected of most people and not flare my symptoms.
It took months, but it worked. When Broadway opened back up later that fall, Joel was right in the center of it, doing what he loved.
I did go back to work in October, and I did work 8-hour rehearsal days, and then 12-hour rehearsal days, and then 16-hour rehearsal days. And I happily had the support of my music team, who, if ever I needed to take a moment, could take over for me. But I found that I was able to do my job as long as I managed my energy window.
Our thanks to Ike Ejachi for that report. I'm Diane Macedo. Do stay with us as ABC News Live continues with news, context, and analysis.
ABC News, America's #1 news source.
days with so much going on, it's hard to keep up.
While others are recapping yesterday's headlines,
we're bringing you the right now.
This is the busy border crossing. Steel barricades, another strike.
The Right Now look at the day ahead, how it affects you and your family.
Record high gas prices.
The threat of cyber warfare.
Is peace possible?
World News Now beginning at 2 a.m. Eastern, followed by America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
Streaming here on ABC News Live.
Take America's #1 news with you anywhere you go, anytime, free. Download the ABC News app now. Breaking news, exclusives, 24/7. There for you with one touch. The ABC News app. Download it now.
She was
diva,
drama,
money and fame,
amazing, the prime housewife.
Then suddenly, we've seen a lot of things on The Real Housewives, but we've never seen anyone be arrested.
Unpredictable rich woman. Sign me up.
Thanks for streaming with us. A celebration is set to begin shortly at the White House to commemorate Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's historic confirmation to the Supreme Court. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are set to deliver remarks on the South Lawn, as well as Judge Jackson herself. We'll bring the event to you live when it happens. It all comes just one day after the Senate voted 53-47 to confirm Judge Jackson, with 3 Republicans joining Democrats to vote yes. Judge Jackson and President Biden watched from the White House and embraced when that final vote was tallied. Democrats erupted in applause on the Senate floor, while some Republicans left the chamber. Judge Jackson is now set to become the first black woman to ever serve as a justice on America's highest court. Our congressional correspondent Rachel Scott is on Capitol Hill with more.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson cementing her place in history, becoming the first black woman to be confirmed to the Supreme Court.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed.
Cheers erupting in the chamber. As Democrats rose to their feet with applause, Republicans headed for the door. Mitt Romney of Utah, one of 3 Republicans to vote yes, standing alone, the only GOP senator clapping. Over at the White House, President Biden watching that final tally come in with the judge by his side.
And this nomination is confirmed.
All right. Okay.
An exhale from Jackson when the outcome was clear. Senator Raphael Warnock acknowledging a moment 233 years in the making.
For my 5-year-old daughter, and for so many young women in our country, but really, if we're thinking about it right, for all of us, seeing Judge Jackson ascend to the Supreme Court reflects the promise of progress on which our democracy rests.
And across the country, young Americans were watching too.
Yeah! There's finally a black woman on the Supreme Court. Oh my goodness.
And Rachel Scott joins me live now for more on this. Rachel, we're hearing a little bit more about this assignment from Vice President Kamala Harris that she gave to 2 black Democratic senators after that confirmation vote. What can you tell us?
Yeah, talk about a homework assignment from the vice president herself. She called over the 2 black Democratic senators, Senator Raphael Warnock, Senator Cory Booker. She handed them a piece of blank White House letterhead and gave them really specific instructions here to pen a letter to a young woman about the historic moment that we watched unfold right here on Capitol Hill. And so Senator Warnock wasted no time. He actually wrote a letter to his 5-year-old daughter, Chloe, and I just want to read you a line in this letter. He says, "Dear Chloe, we confirmed Ketanji Brown Jackson to the United States Supreme Court. In our nation's history, she is the first Supreme Court justice who looks like you with hair like yours." You know, for so many in this country, images are powerful. What we see is what we believe that we can become. And so for a lot of black girls out there watching Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson ascend to the highest court in the nation is a powerful image that will inspire them about the possibilities that are out there for everyone.
And Rachel, most Republican senators left the hall after the vote as Democrats stood in applause. What are you hearing about that moment?
Yeah, I mean, what a scene that played out, and we just watched that in my piece there. You had 3 Republican senators who did vote yes on Judge Jackson, but then as Democrats hopped up and gave a standing ovation, we watched as Republicans headed for the exit, passing by Senator Mitt Romney of Utah. He is one of the 3 that did vote yes, and he was the lone GOP senator left standing there applauding. At this point, Republicans know that there was really nothing that they could do to stop this confirmation process. The Democrats did not need any bipartisan support, though the president wanted it. But they're really frustrated by the fact that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is confirmed. And so they're continuing to express their grievances over this, Diane.
Rachel Scott, thank you for that. And for more on this, let's bring in White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks, along with ABC News contributors Leah Wright-Rigger, a history professor at Johns Hopkins University. Leah, you know, the history of this moment just can't be repeated enough. For the first time in history, a black woman will sit on the highest court in the land. What did it take to get here?
It took everything. I mean, we're talking about a 200-plus year, a 2-century trajectory for Black women. Black women have never been allowed onto the Supreme Court. Certainly, they have had cases that have affected them, that have affected their experiences, put in front of the court. We've had Black Supreme Court lawyers, right? Black women who have been able to argue in front of the Supreme Court, but even that was barrier breaking. Every single time a Black woman has been considered for the Supreme Court in modern history, really starting in the mid-1960s under the Nixon administration with Jewel LaFontant. Every single time a Black woman has come before, they've been kicked out, they have been tossed aside, they have been unshortlisted, for a variety of reasons, none of which have to do with their qualifications. In fact, every Black woman that has come before the Supreme Court has been supremely qualified, if not overqualified, for the role. And that has happened over and over and over again. And I think the final straw for many people was in 2016, when again, somebody like Judge Jackson was shortlisted for the highest court in the land and then was passed over. And so people said, now is the time. Now is the time to make this right. And so we saw, in this case, President Biden made a promise during the 2020 primary season. He has held fast to that promise. And when it came time to make good on that promise, he did. And so what ultimately ended up happening is not only the shattering of a glass ceiling, but also the rectification of a wrong, a long-standing wrong, an exclusive and discriminatory wrong that has persisted for centuries. We finally made good on that long-term promise and rectifying that egregious wrong.
And Mary Alice, when you look at the current makeup, what kind of an impact can Judge Jackson have on the Supreme Court?
Diane, I think there's no question that she will have a transformational impact. Every justice does in a lot of ways. There's only 9 of them. We talk often in this town about how they're the 9 most powerful individuals in Washington, in the country. Everyone leaves their mark. And it's not only that sort of the historic nature of her confirmation, all of what she brings with race and gender diversity, but also her background, the diversity of her experience. She'll be the first public defender to bring that kind of experience to the bench, a real understanding about how trials work. She's spent time representing those that couldn't afford representation themselves, and I think that will bring, Democrats are really proud that will bring a really different perspective to the court, without a doubt. But you're right, too. I think that we do need to take a step back and remind everyone that she will not immediately change the ideological makeup of the court. Not at all. If anything, this court is still very right-wing leaning, very conservative. It is dominated by 6 conservative judges, 3 of whom were appointed by Trump in his one term. So right now, we don't, she's going to replace Justice Breyer, who was her mentor, who she clerked for. She's expected largely to write opinions you can imagine that will be similar to his. We've seen him in the last year often dissenting in a smaller liberal minority, and we can imagine most likely she will be dissenting a lot in the coming sort of court, too.
And Leah, we've talked about the confirmation, but I also want to talk about this moment, because not only is this a celebration for the first Black woman to become a Supreme Court justice, but it also involves an address from the first female and first Black vice president who presided over her confirmation. So what kind of a historical impact do you think this moment will have, the 2 of them addressing the nation today?
Well, we also know Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, is also a lawyer and has come up in those circles. And so I think it was certainly a powerful moment to see the possibilities. Right? So we are in an era where we shouldn't really be talking about the first or shattering glass ceilings. And yet here we are, and we continue to be here. And there are many more glass ceilings to be shattered. And yet on that stage yesterday, there were two Black women who've gotten to the two of the most powerful positions in the United States, let alone the world, and are essentially becoming both symbolic and substantive examples for the world to see. And so I think a lot is summed up in that image, that very kind of powerful image of Justice, now confirmed Justice Jackson's daughter looking at her with pride, but I'd also say she was looking at her with possibility, right? The possibility of what my mother now represents. And I think it's the same thing for Vice President Kamala Harris. Right? This is the possibility of what can happen when we put aside these barriers, when that moment is ripe for women to assume power and to take power. And I also have to say that it's a very different moment than what we saw with the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, which happened in October 2020. It was far more tense. We were on the edge of an election. There was far more hostility. There was no bipartisan support in terms of Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation. So it's very interesting to see a very different dynamic happening over the course of the last few weeks, but certainly yesterday and today, all involving women moving into very powerful positions.
And Leah, we heard that assignment from the vice president to some of the senators to pen a letter to a young Black woman in their lives. What does this mean for Black women specifically?
Well, I think Black women have been saying it, right? Over 2,000 Black women signed a letter in the New York Times urging America and urging Congress to confirm Judge Jackson. And what they said is that this represents a moment of possibility, a moment of opportunity, but also a moment to really rectify an egregious wrong, a long-standing historical wrong. Black women have always had to work harder. They've always had to be twice as good. They always have had to be exceptional in order to get into these spaces. So now is the time to put those people in place, but also what it does, and I think this is more than just symbolic, I think there is substance to this as well. It tells people that there is opportunity for them, that they too can someday be, on the Supreme Court, that they're not limited by their race or by their gender. And I was particularly struck, there was a series recently with a group of Black women who were law students. And one in particular said, I always wanted to be the first Black woman on the Supreme Court, but now I'm completely content to be the second, right? And so that really encapsulated just how powerful this moment is. It is a moment that says, now the opportunity is yours. There are no barriers in place. Those barriers have been removed. Right? This is your opportunity. This is your possibility. This is your moment.
And I want to bring presidential historian Mark Updegrove into the conversation as well. Mark, President Biden is fulfilling a key campaign promise with this confirmation. What does this mean for his legacy?
Well, this is a big part of Joe Biden's legacy. Joe Biden might say this is a big effing deal. This is a really big deal to have the first African-American woman on the court, in the same manner that it was a big deal for Lyndon Johnson to appoint the first African-American male to the Supreme Court in Thurgood Marshall. Until 1967, only white men had made up the highest court in our land. So this is a very, very big deal. For Joe Biden, who wants to be, I think, the most progressive president since Lyndon Johnson, and has a domestic policy agenda that is as ambitious as we've seen since the Great Society, it's a huge part of his legacy, not only to have the first African-American woman in the vice presidency, but also to have the first African-American on the high court. And we are now, as Leah said, this makes us, I think Cory Booker said it during the very moving speech he made, Ketanji Brown Jackson is a harbinger of hope. She makes us better and better. And we can now look at our court as more of a reflection of the American population in general than ever in the history of our nation. So this is a big step forward and a big part of Joe Biden's legacy.
Mary Alice, in the midst of all this, though, there are growing concerns over an outbreak of COVID-19 cases there in Washington. How is that affecting the event?
Yeah, well, you can see that they're setting up outside today. That was the plan, but I do imagine there are some members of Congress who might decide to stay away. They might be concerned about their possible exposure to others if they've had a close contact. The president's been grilled for the last 24 hours, his team, about how often he is getting tested. We saw him in what looked visibly like a close contact with Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She was there at several events earlier in the week before testing positive herself, where she's seen hugging, closely kissing, on the cheek, President Biden. The White House saying that it was not considered a close contact by CDC standards because they weren't together for very long. It was just a few minutes, not 15 minutes. But yeah, Washington is concerned. There's several members of his cabinet that won't be there today because they've also tested positive.
And Mary Alice, it's hard to forget that when the last Supreme Court justice was confirmed, Amy Coney Barrett, there was an outbreak following her confirmation ceremony. Is the White House worried at all we could see a repeat?
They say they're not. They say that this is obviously a very different moment. This is a moment where we have vaccines, where the president has been double boosted, and it's a White House that is treated, frankly, COVID precautions just entirely differently. A White House that has regular testing regimes for anyone who's coming in, even since the vaccine and since boosters. They test those that are close to the president, test those that come in close contact with the other principals. I know that as reporters, we are tested regularly. If we are going to participate in events at the White House, that's required. So this White House treating COVID very differently, but also saying this is just a really different moment where the country is getting back to usual and kind of figuring out how to live in this different reality with COVID.
And Leah, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was once asked when there will be enough women on the court, and she famously responded, when there are 9. And her reasoning for that was that the court was all male for generations and no one questioned that, so why not all female? How have shifts in public opinion influenced the court over the years? And what does it say that we're now going to have 4 women on the Supreme Court?
Well, having 4 women on the Supreme Court is a big deal. I mean, there are these stories that they tell about the justices, especially now that the justices have come back, and they say, the people who ask the best questions, the people who take the most notes, the people who are most attentive are the women on the court. And so I think that's an interesting, it's an interesting example, but it certainly speaks to that point that Ruth Bader Ginsburg made before her passing, which is about the importance in the representation of women in a space that has been exclusively male for the bulk of its existence. And so now we're actually seeing, right, the desegregation of that space, both in race and gender, but also in things like ethnicity and things like religion. We're even seeing, to some extent, a desegregation of the hyper Ivy League credentials of the justices. So I think that there is space to create a more representative court. And in fact, public opinion has been very much in favor of this for quite some time. One of the things that I think is really fascinating is that Judge Jackson actually is the most popular Supreme Court nominee over the past several decades. More than 2/3 of Americans supported her confirmation. Even those Republicans who didn't support her confirmation admitted that she was more than qualified to be there. And so I think America has accepted that the Supreme Court is a space that should be representative of the country. In doing so, it makes the body of the Supreme Court both more trusted, but also far more democratic, because it's actually representing the people that it claims to represent, as opposed to elites or all white men or these very exclusive spaces.
And Mark, despite the fact that the vote was largely across party lines, which many recent Supreme Court confirmations have been, there is, according to polls, broad support for Judge Jackson across the country. What does that tell you about where society is now?
Well, I think society is very much ready to see our government be truly representative. And by representative, I mean representing all of our citizens. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the court looks more like America than it ever has before. But if I can just make one point, Diane, about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I had the privilege of talking to her, doing an interview with her the year that she died in January of 2019. She and I spoke, and she talked about her confirmation process back in 1993. And it's so different than the confirmation process that Judge Jackson faced recently. She was, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was, of course, President Clinton's nominee in 1993 and faced the Judiciary Committee headed up by Joe Biden. And Joe Biden was a big supporter. As she explained to me, her biggest supporters on that committee were Orrin Hatch and Strom Thurmond, the Republican senators from Utah and South Carolina, respectively. And she had such a good relationship with Strom Thurmond, who was her probably ideologically almost a polar opposite. But he gave her keychains, many keychains that had his name on it. And she had those keychains until the end of her life, a symbol of the great harmony that we saw in Washington 30 years ago and that's lacking in Washington today, despite Judge Jackson's confirmation.
And for anyone just joining us, I want to just remind everybody or let you know that we are awaiting a celebration at the White House now. Remarks from the president, the vice president, to commemorate the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. We will also hear from Judge Jackson, soon to be Justice Jackson, during this event. Mary Alice Parks is at the White House for us. Mary Alice, what can we expect from the agenda today? How is this event going to play out?
Yeah, we're going to hear from the president as well as Judge Jackson, like you said. President Biden had said that this was just a long time coming, that it was a priority of his because it was important that the country finally had a court that looked like the country, that looked like America. So we're expecting the president to take a bit of a victory lap here, to celebrate this moment, relish in this moment. And like Leah was saying, remind the country that this was a big win for him because she's incredibly popular. Judge Jackson, in poll after poll, the majority of Americans were excited by her confirmation, excited by her nomination, and then her confirmation. And I think, you make a really good point. It does raise a question for the senators. When a majority of Americans are excited and I think frustrated by a continued polarization of this process, to look at this moment and see that she only received 3 bipartisan votes, 3 Republican votes. There's a lot of Americans that are scratching their head, that are frustrated with that. Ron Klain, the White House chief of staff, said at the end it didn't really matter. She gets on the bench, right? All that matters to them is that she was confirmed. But I think there's going to be a lot of talk in the years to come about whether it does matter. Americans want to know that their court is not political, that their court is not polarized, that judges, that the courts sit above politics, that the law is above politics. And when they watch these highly charged confirmation hearings, these highly political, battles unfold on Capitol Hill around these confirmation hearings, I think that it has the potential to frustrate Americans and cast doubt on the entire court. And that's something that I think all of us are going to be watching closely in the years to come.
And Mary Alice, what are some of the larger cases that the Supreme Court is set to hear early on in Judge Jackson's tenure?
Yeah, we know that it will be a full docket, as it always is, but some really charged cases around the environment, around clean water, around the death penalty. There's a big case that could change the future of affirmative action in this country. Judge Jackson preemptively announced that she, if confirmed, would sit that out, would recuse herself from that case because 2 of the schools sort of named in that case are Harvard and UNC, and she has close ties to Harvard. So that will be an interesting case that she has already said she will recuse herself from. But you can imagine some of these cases that really impact the day-to-day life of Americans she will be weighing in on and deciding on right away in her first year.
And Leah, as those decisions start to come out, what are you looking out for?
Well, I think we're looking out for her jurisprudence. So we're looking at her, we had a little bit of a taste of that during the confirmation hearings, but actually not that much because most of the questions were restricted to these kind of cultural gotcha questions that don't necessarily have any standing on the cases that would be coming before her, at least in the next year of the Supreme Court, or the next year for the court's docket. So we're really going to be looking at, how is she writing decisions? What kind of questions is she asking from the bench? What kinds of notes is she taking? How is she thinking about these problems in these larger issues? I think a lot of people are going to be really interested in a couple of things. One, how does she weigh in on cases having to do with abortion or reproductive rights? How does she weigh in on cases that have to do with policing, particularly since she talked about that connection to police and her family? So how is she weighing in on cases that have to do with policing, perhaps police brutality, or any of these cases that may come forward? And then, of course, the big question, because we may get some cases from the related to the January 6th, or at least the election.
ABC News Special Report. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good afternoon, and we're coming on the air at this hour because President Biden is set to mark the history made just moments from now at the White House, the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson as the first black woman to serve on the nation's highest court. We will hear from President Biden and from Judge Jackson for the first time since her confirmation yesterday by the Senate. 3 Republicans joining all of the Democrats, the president making good on his campaign promise to nominate the first black woman to the bench, the first in its 233-year history. The Senate confirming her by a vote of 53 to 47. As I mentioned, 3 Republicans voting in favor, Senators Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitt Romney. Democrats erupting into cheers to mark the achievement less than 24 hours ago. Senator Romney, we took note, the lone Republican applauding as other Republicans filed out, walking past him. President Biden and Judge Jackson watching the historic vote unfold from the White House. There they are in the Roosevelt Room, celebrating the moment yesterday, a hug. Vice President Kamala Harris, who of course made history herself when elected to be vice president, presiding yesterday, reading the final tally, confirming the country's first black woman to become a Supreme Court justice. Judge Jackson will not take her place on the bench until retiring Justice Stephen Breyer officially steps down after this term. She, of course, clerked for Justice Breyer earlier in her career. Her confirmation does not shift the balance of the court. It will still be a 6-3 conservative-leaning court. The White House with a large guest list for today's event, including Judge Jackson's family, all of the senators who voted to confirm her, the House Democratic leadership, and members of the Congressional Black Caucus, among many others. The 3 Republicans who did vote for her were invited. They're not expected to attend. Senator Collins has tested positive for COVID. The other 2 Republicans, Senators Romney and Murkowski, saying they will not attend. Current members of the Supreme Court will also not be there because we're told by our Supreme Court reporter Devin Dwyer that there's no official vacancy right now on the court because Justice Breyer will finish out his term. So out of respect for him, the justices will not be here for this occasion. You're looking live at the South Lawn. And again, as I mentioned, you'll be hearing from President Biden. You'll be hearing from Judge Jackson herself. And in the crowd there today, Judge Jackson's family. And we have taken note all along of those powerful moments. It was a heated confirmation hearing, but her family was there by her side every step of the way. Her proud daughters, her husband, the surgeon. There you see one of the images of them right there behind her during the confirmation hearings. There was that one image of her that we all took note of, Deborah Roberts, of her daughter looking over with pride. There it is right there. In so many words, don't mess with my mother, that look, right?
A daughter by the name of Leela, I might add.
Like yours.
It's something we share in common. But there's something about that photo, the pride, David. And I think that that's what so many people have felt. You know, a woman who has come from humble beginnings and who had to work so hard to get there and to overcome obstacles, to have parents who had overcome obstacles, and to be there at the height of her profession and her career. I think the pride and the work is what speaks so much for her.
Her parents were looking at right there in that image, Deborah, and they are both public school teachers. But then that famous story of Judge Jackson remembering when she was a little girl with her coloring books across the table from her father studying his law books.
Sitting next to him, and so that was kind of something that fed her interest in the law. I think that is what has grabbed so many people, this family. This is the classic American dream. Her parents endured segregation, just as my parents endured segregation, but yet they raised this daughter who worked so hard, dreamed so much, and achieved so much. And that pride, I'm telling you, I mean, I dare anybody to look at that picture of those parents and of her children and not tear up a little bit to see the pride in this family of this accomplishment.
And Deborah, you and I were talking before we came on the air. I know you always sort of poll your family, your friends, your loved ones before you do these special reports. And you were saying many acknowledge it's so important to mark history made, but they look forward to a day when this history opens the doors to make this far more typical of what we see.
Absolutely. One of my friends said that I hate that it's sort of cloaked in this whole racial and gender, discussion. But at the end of the day, you cannot
acknowledge, it cannot not acknowledge that this is a big moment. It is a big moment. And at the end of the day, hopefully we will move on and now this will be normalized. But all the little girls now, David, who will see this woman and think this is possible. It's not a big deal that there is a black woman on the Supreme Court. That's where we are at this moment.
I think of those little girls when I see that image of her own daughter looking over at her mother. And I think of the little boys, too, because they all go to school in America today. And this is what their classroom looks like.
Exactly.
And now the Supreme Court
a little bit more like America
is catching up some 200 years later. I want to bring in Mary Bruce, who was live at the White House. And Mary, this was a campaign promise from President Biden, and he kept that promise.
A campaign promise fulfilled, David, and I have to tell you, celebration is the word you used, and that is absolutely right. It feels a little bit like a party here at the White House. There are several hundred people gathered here out on the lawn. This is actually the biggest celebration that I've seen so far during the Biden administration, and people, this is a very happy, excited crowd. You have seen a who's who of Washington sharing hugs, taking selfies. I've even seen some dancing out here, and this really is a chance for the president to take a victory lap, not only because this is a campaign promise fulfilled, of course, his first pick to sit on the Supreme Court, but this huge moment in history. All along, Joe Biden has said that he wants the Supreme Court to look more like the rest of America. And today is a chance to celebrate this giant step forward in that fight. And the president has also always said he wants young people, especially young women, young black and brown people, to be able to look at the court and see themselves reflected in it.
The second gentleman of the
Mary
United
Bruce,
States.
competing a little with the music behind her there. Mary, thank you for that. We're expecting to see President Biden come out of the White House, walk down the South Lawn, and there we see him. We see, that's the First Lady, actually, Jill Biden, of course, and the second gentleman. Making their way to the seats to mark this day, Doug Emhoff, of course. Obviously, we're also expecting to see, following them, as they normally do on occasions like this one, the president, the vice president, and of course, the woman who was about to make history, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, confirmed now to the Supreme Court, though won't be sworn in until after this term, because Justice Stephen Breyer will finish out his term. And another powerful part of this is that she actually clerked, as I mentioned, for Justice Breyer. Part of the many steps along the path to get her to this moment. She said she will be a justice following in the path of Justice Breyer, but she'll bring to her role a life experience unlike anyone else on the court, which is what makes all of these justices sort of a fulsome body, as we all know, to bring what they've learned, their life lessons to the court and to represent the country. All eyes on that doorway. Impossible to know what it's like for Judge Jackson, though we will hear from her today, just as we heard from her when it was announced when she was at the White House. And among the first comments she made at the White House when we watched that day were an appreciation of her faith, her family, and all those who supported her to get her to this moment. She said she was profoundly grateful to live in this country in this moment when this possibility could become reality. Not lost on her the history that was about to be made. We know in the White House that particular day was her husband, the surgeon she met in college, proudly watching on as he did during the confirmation hearings as well. And here the signal that the president's about to walk out. Let's watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by the Vice President of the United States and Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson.
President with history really standing on both sides. The vice president he chose as his running mate who made history, and now Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, who will make history on the Supreme Court.
Good morning,
Have a seat, please. President Joe Biden, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff, members of Congress, members of the Cabinet, members of our administration, and friends and fellow Americans. Today is indeed a wonderful day. As we gather to celebrate the confirmation of the next Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. President George Washington once referred to America as a great experiment, a nation founded on the previously untested belief that the people, we the people, could form a more perfect union. And that belief has pushed our nation forward for generations. And it is that belief that we reaffirmed yesterday. Through the confirmation of the first Black woman to the United States Supreme Court. And Judge Jackson, you will inspire generations of leaders. They will watch your confirmation hearings and read your decisions. In the years to come, the court will answer fundamental questions about who we are and what kind of country we live in. Will we expand opportunity or restrict it? Will we strengthen the foundations of our great democracy or let them crumble? Will we move forward or backward? The young leaders of our nation will learn from the experience, the judgment, the wisdom that you, Judge Jackson, will apply in every case that comes before you, and they will see, for the first time, 4 women sitting on that court at one time. So as a point of personal privilege, I will share with you, Judge Jackson, that when I presided over the Senate confirmation vote yesterday, while I was sitting there, I drafted a note to my goddaughter. And I told her that I felt such a deep sense of pride and joy, and about what this moment means for our nation and for her future. And I will tell you, her braids are just a little longer than yours. But as I wrote to her, I told her what I knew this would mean for her life and all that she has in terms of potential. So indeed, the road toward our more perfect union is not always straight, and it is not always smooth, but sometimes it leads to a day like today. A day that reminds us what is possible when progress is made, and that the journey, well, it will always be worth it. So let us not forget that as we celebrate this day, we are also here in great part because of one President Joe Biden vision and leadership and commitment, a lifelong commitment to building a better America. And of course, we are also here because of the voices and the support of so many others, many of whom are in this audience today. And with that, it is now my extreme and great honor to introduce our president, Joe Biden.
Thank you, Kamala. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The first really smart decision I made in this administration. My name's Joe Biden. Please sit down. I'm Jill's husband and Naomi Biden's grandfather. And folks, now yesterday, this is not only a sunny day, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. This is going to let so much sun shine on so many young women, so many young black women, so many minorities, that it's real. It's real. We're going to look back, nothing to do with me. We're going to look back and see this as a moment of real change in American history. I was on the phone this morning, Jesse, with President Ramaphosa of South Africa. And he was talking about how the time that I was so outspoken about what was going on in my meeting with Nelson Mandela here. And I said, you know, I'm shortly going to go out, I'm looking out the window. I'm going to go out on this, what they call the South Lawn in the White House. And I'm going to introduce to the world, the first African-American woman out of over 200 judges on the Supreme Court. And he said to me, he said, keep it up. Keep it up. We're going to keep it up. And folks, yesterday, we all witnessed a truly historic moment presided over by the Vice President. There are moments that people go back in history and they're literally historic, consequential, fundamental shifts in American policy. Today, we're joined by the First Lady, the Second Gentleman, and members of the Cabinet, Senate Majority Leader, there you are, Chuck, Senate Majority Leader, and so many who made this possible. And today is a good day, a day that history is going to remember, and in the years to come, they're going to be proud of what we did, and we're going to try what Dick Durbin did as the chairman of the committee. I'm serious, Dick. I'm deadly earnest when I say that. To turn our children and grandchildren to say, I was there. I was there. This is one of those moments, in my view. My fellow Americans, today, I'm honored to officially introduce to you the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Ketanji Brown Jackson. After more than 20 hours of questioning at her hearing and nearly 100 meetings, she made herself available to every single senator who wanted to speak to her and spoke for more than just a few minutes, answered their questions in private as well as before the committee. We all saw the kind of justice she'll be: fair and impartial, thoughtful, careful, precise, brilliant, a brilliant legal mind with deep knowledge of the law, and a judicial temperament, which was equally important in my view, that's calm and in command, and a humility that allows so many Americans to see themselves in Ketanji Brown Jackson. That brings a rare combination of expertise and qualifications to the court. A federal judge who has served on the second most powerful court in America, behind the Supreme Court. A former federal public defender with the ability to explain complicated issues in the law in ways everybody, all people can understand. A new perspective. When I made the commitment to nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court, I could see this day. I literally could see this day because I thought about it for a long, long time. as Jill and Naomi will tell you, I wasn't going to run again. But when I decided to run, this was one of the first decisions I made. I could see it. I could see it as a day of hope, a day of promise, a day of progress. A day when, once again, the moral arc of the universe, as Barack used to quote all the time, bends a little more toward justice. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I knew the person I nominated will be put through a painful and difficult confirmation process. But I have to tell you, what Judge Jackson was put through was well beyond that. There was verbal abuse, the anger, the constant interruptions, the most vile, baseless assertions and accusations. In the face of it all, Judge Jackson showed the incredible character and integrity she possesses. Poise. Poise and composure. Patience and restraint. And yes, perseverance and even joy. Even joy. Ketanji, or I'm not going to be calling you that in public anymore. Judge, you are the very definition of what we Irish refer to as dignity. You have enormous dignity. And it communicates to people. It's contagious. And it matters. It matters a lot. Maybe that's not surprising if you look who sat behind her during those hearings. Her husband, Dr. Patrick Jackson, and his family. Patrick, stand up, man. Stand up. Talia and Layla, stand up. I know it's embarrassing the girls. I'm going to tell you what Talia said. I said to Talia, it's hard being the daughter or the son of a famous person. I said, imagine what it's like being president. She said, she may be. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Ketanji, her brother, a former police officer and a veteran. Ketanji, stand up, man. This is a man who looks like he can still play, buddy. He's got biceps about as big as my calves. Thank you, bud. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, her parents, Johnny and Elroy Brown. Johnny, all right, stand up. I tell you what, as I told Mom's rule in my house. Oh, you not think I'm kidding. I'm not. My mom and my wife as well. Look, people of deep faith, the deep love of family and country, that's what you represent. Who know firsthand, Mom and Dad, the indignity of Jim Crow, the inhumanity of legal segregation, and you had overcome so much in your own lives. You saw the strength of parents and the strength of a daughter that is just worth celebrating. I can't get over, Mom and Dad, what you did and your faith and never giving up any hope. And both that wonderful son you had and your daughter. And that strength lifted up millions of Americans who watched you, Judge Jackson, especially women and women of color, who have had to run the gauntlet in their own lives. So many of my cabinet members are women of color, women that represent every sector of the community. And it matters. And you stood up for them as well. They know it. Everybody out there, every woman out there, everyone, am I correct? Just like they have. Just like they have. And same with the women members of Congress as well, across the board. Look, it's a powerful thing when people can see themselves in others. Think about that. What's the most powerful thing? I'll bet every one of you can go back and think of a time in your life where there was a teacher, a family member, a neighbor, somebody who made you believe that you could be whatever you wanted to be. It's a powerful, powerful, powerful notion. That's one of the reasons I believe so strongly that we needed a court that looks like America, not just the Supreme Court. That's why I'm proud to say, with the great help of Dick Durbin, I've nominated more black women judges of federal appeal courts than all previous presidents combined. That's why I'm proud that Kamala Harris is our Vice President of the United States. A brilliant lawyer, the Attorney General of the state of California, former member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Kamala was invaluable during this entire process. And Chuck, our majority leader, I want to thank you, pal. You did a masterful job in keeping the caucus together, getting this vote across the finish line in a timely and historic manner. Just watching on television yesterday, watching when the vote was taken on the Democratic side, the way people, there was such enthusiasm, genuine. You can tell when it's real. You can tell when it's real. Did an incredible job, Chuck. Thank you so much. Folks, because you're all able to sit down and don't have to stand, I'm going to go on a little longer here and tell you. I want to say something about Dick Durbin again. Dick, I'm telling you, overseeing the hearing, how you executed the strategy by the hour, every day to keep the committee together. And you have a very divided committee with some of the most conservative members of the Senate on that committee. It was especially difficult with an evenly divided Senate. Dick, I served as chairman of that committee for a number of years before I had this job and the job of vice president, as did all the Democrats. You did not stand, I think all the Democrats in the committee did. And every Democrat in the Senate, all of whom voted for Judge Jackson. And notwithstanding the harassment and attacks in the hearings, I always believed that the bipartisan vote was possible. And I hope I don't get him in trouble. I mean it sincerely, but I want to thank 3 Republicans who voted for Judge Jackson. Senator Collins, who's a woman of integrity. Senator Murkowski, the same way in Alaska and up for re-election. And Mitt Romney, whose dad stood up like he did. His dad stood up and made these decisions on civil rights. They deserve enormous credit for setting aside partisanship and making a carefully considered judgment based on the judge's character, qualifications, independence. And I truly admire the respect, diligence, and hard work they demonstrated in the course of the process. As someone who's overseen, they tell me, more Supreme Court nominations than anyone who's alive today, I believe that respect for the process is important. And that's why it was so important to me to meet the constitutional requirement to seek the advice and the consent of the Senate. The advice beforehand and the consent. Judge Jackson started the nominating process with an impressive range of support, from the FOP to the civil rights leaders. Even Republican-appointed judges came forward. In fact, Judge Jackson was introduced at the hearing by Judge Thomas Griffin, the distinguished retired judge appointed by George W. Bush. She finished the hearing with among the highest levels of support of the American people of any nomination in recent memory. So soon, Judge Jackson will join the United States Supreme Court, and like every justice, the decisions she makes will impact on the lives of America for a lot longer, in many cases, than any laws we all make. But the truth is, she's already impacting the lives of so many Americans. During the hearing, Dick spoke about a custodial worker who works a night shift at the Capitol. Her name is Verona Clemens. Verona, where are you? Stand up, Verona. I want to see. You don't mind. She told him what this nomination meant to her. So he invited Ms. Clemens to attend the hearing because she wanted to see, hear, and stand by Judge Jackson. Thank you, Verona. Thank you, thank you, thank you. At her meeting with Judge Jackson, Senator Duckworth introduced her to 11-year-old, is it Vivian? Vivian. I'm sorry, Vivian. That's hers. That's your sister. He's pointing. Who was so inspired by the hearing, she wants to be a Supreme Court justice when she grows up. God love you. Stand up, honey. Am I going to embarrass you by asking you to stand up? Come on, stand. There's tens of thousands of Veens all through the entire United States. She met Judge Jackson and saw her future. Veens, you're here today, and thank you for coming, honey. I know I embarrassed you by introducing you, but thank you. People of every generation, of every race, of every background felt this moment, and they feel it now. They feel a sense of pride and hope and belonging and believing and knowing the promise of America includes everybody, all of us. That's the American experiment. Justice Breyer talked about it when he came to the White House in January to announce his retirement from the court. He used to technically work with me when I was on the Judiciary Committee, and that's before he became a justice. He's a man of great integrity. We're going to miss Justice Breyer. He's a patriot, an extraordinary public service, and a great justice of the Supreme Court. And folks, let me close with what I've long said. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. I guess we traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president. I don't know that for a fact. And we were sitting alone. I had an interpreter and he had an interpreter. And he looked at me in all seriousness. He said, "Can you define America for me?" And I said what many of you heard me say for a long time. I said, "Yes, I can. In one word, possibilities. Possibilities. That in America, everyone should be able to go as far as their hard work and God-given talent will take them, and possibilities. We're the only ones. That's why we're viewed as the ugly Americans. We think anything's possible." And the idea that a young girl who was dissuaded from even thinking you should apply to Harvard Law School, don't raise your hopes so high. Well, I don't know who told you that, but I'd like to go back and invite her to the Supreme Court. She can see the interior. Look, even the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Now, folks, it's my honor, and it truly is an honor. I've been looking forward to it for a while, to introduce you the next Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President. It is the greatest honor of my life to be here with you at this moment, standing before my wonderful family, many of my close friends, your distinguished staff and guests, and the American people. Over these past few weeks, you've heard a lot from me and about me. So I hope to use this time primarily to do something that I have not had sufficient time to do, which is to extend my heartfelt thanks to the many, many people who have helped me as part of this incredible journey. I have quite a few people to thank, and as I'm sure you can imagine, in this moment, it is hard to find the words to express the depth of my gratitude. First, as always, I have to give thanks to God for delivering me as promised and for sustaining me throughout this nomination and confirmation process. As I said at the outset, I have come this far by faith, and I know that I am truly blessed. To the many people who have lifted me up in prayer since the nomination, thank you. I am very grateful. Thank you as well, Mr. President, for believing in me and for honoring me with this extraordinary chance to serve our country. Thank you also, Madam Vice President, for your wise counsel and steady guidance. And thank you to the First Lady and the Second Gentleman for the care and warmth that you have shown me and my family. I would also like to extend my thanks to each member of the Senate. You have fulfilled the important constitutional role of providing advice and consent under the leadership of Majority Leader Schumer. And I'm especially grateful for the work of the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee under Chairman Durbin's skillful leadership. As you may have heard, during the confirmation process, I had the distinct honor of having 95 personal meetings with 97 sitting senators. And we had substantive and engaging conversations about my approach to judging and about the role of judges in the constitutional system we all love. As a brief aside, I will note that these are subjects about which I care deeply. I have dedicated my career to public service because I love this country and our Constitution and the rights that make us free. I also understand from my many years of practice as a legal advocate, as a trial judge, and as a judge on a court of appeals, that part of the genius of the constitutional framework of the United States is its design, and that the framers entrusted the judicial branch with the crucial but limited role. I've also spent the better part of the past decade hearing thousands of cases and writing hundreds of opinions, and in every instance, I have done my level best to stay in my lane and to reach a result that is consistent with my understanding of the law and with the obligation to rule independently without fear or favor. I am humbled and honored to continue in this fashion as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, working with brilliant colleagues, supporting and defending the Constitution, and steadfastly upholding the rule of law. But today, at this podium, my mission is far more modest. I'm simply here to give my heartfelt thanks to the categories of folks who are largely responsible for me being here at this moment. First, of course, there is my family. Mom and Dad, thank you, not only for traveling back here on what seems like a moment's notice, but for everything you've done and continue to do for me. My brother Kataj is here as well. You've always been an inspiration to me as a model of public service and bravery, and I thank you for that. I love you all very much. To my in-laws, Pamela and Gardner Jackson, who are here today, and my sisters-in-law and brothers-in-law, William and Dana, Gardy and Natalie, thank you for your love and support. To my daughters, Talia and Layla, I bet you never thought you'd get to skip school by spending a day at the White House. This is all pretty exciting for me as well, but nothing has brought me greater joy than being your mother. I love you very much. Patrick, thank you for everything you've done for me over these past 25 years of our marriage. You've done everything to support and encourage me, and it is you who've made this moment possible. Your steadfast love gave me the courage to move in this direction. I don't know that I believed you when you said that I could do this, but now I do. And for that, I'm forever grateful. In the family category, let me also briefly mention the huge extended family, both Patrick's and my own, who are watching this from all over the country and the world. Thank you for supporting me. I hope to be able to connect with you personally in the coming weeks and months. Moving on briefly to the second category of people that warrant special recognition, those who've provided invaluable support to me professionally in the decades prior to my nomination, and the many, many friends I have been privileged to make throughout my life and career. Now, I know that everyone who finds professional success thinks they have the best mentors, but I truly do. I had 3 inspiring jurists for whom I had the privilege of clerking: Judge Patty Saris, Judge Bruce Selya, and of course, Justice Stephen Breyer. Each of them is an exceptional public servant, and I could not have had better role models for thoughtfulness, integrity, honor, and principle, both by word and deed. My clerkship with Justice Breyer in particular was an extraordinary gift, and one for which I've only become more grateful with each passing year. Justice Breyer's commitment to an independent, impartial judiciary is unflagging. And for him, the rule of law is not merely a duty, it is his passion. I am daunted by the prospect of having to follow in his footsteps, and I would count myself lucky, indeed, to be able to do so with even the smallest amount of his wisdom, grace, and joy. The exceptional mentorship of the judges for whom I clerked has proven especially significant for me during this past decade of my service as a federal judge. And of course, that service itself has been a unique opportunity. For that, I must also thank President Obama, who put his faith in me by nominating me to my first judicial role on the Federal District Court. This brings me to my colleagues and staff of the Federal District Court in Washington, D.C. and the D.C. Circuit. Thank you for everything. I am deeply grateful for your wisdom and your battle-tested friendship through the years. I also want to extend a special thanks to all of my law clerks, many of whom are here today, who have carved out time and space to accompany me on this professional journey. I'm especially grateful to Jennifer Gruda, who has been by my side since nearly the outset of my time on the bench and has promised not to leave me as we take this last big step. To the many other friends that I have had the great good fortune to have made throughout the years, from my neighborhood growing up, from Miami Palmetto Senior High School, and especially the debate team, from my days at Harvard College, where I met my indefatigable and beloved roommates, Lisa Fairfax, Nina Coleman Simmons, and Antoinette Sequeira Coakley. They are truly my sisters. To my time at Harvard Law School and the many professional experiences that I've been blessed to have since graduation, thank you. I have too many friends to name, but please know how much you've meant to me and how much I have appreciated the smiles, the hugs, and the many atta-girls that have propelled me forward to this day. Finally, I'd like to give special thanks to the White House staff and the special assistants who provided invaluable assistance in helping me to navigate the confirmation process. My trusted Sherpa, Senator Doug Jones, was an absolute godsend. He was an absolute godsend. He's not only the best storyteller you'd ever want to meet, but also unbelievably popular on the Hill, which helped a lot. I'm also standing here today in no small part due to the hard work of the brilliant folks who interact with the legislature and other stakeholders on behalf of the White House, including Louisa Terrell, Rima Doden, Tona Boyd, Minion Moore, Ben LaBalt, and Andrew Bates. I am also particularly grateful for the awe-inspiring leadership of White House counsel Dana Remus. of Paige Herwig. Where's Paige? And Ron Klain. They led an extraordinarily talented team of White House staffers in the Herculean effort that was required to ensure that I was well prepared for the rigors of this process and in record time. Thank you all. Thank you as well to the many, many kind-hearted people from all over this country and around the world who have reached out to me directly in recent weeks with messages of support. I have spent years toiling away in the relative solitude of my chambers with just my law clerks in isolation, so it's been somewhat overwhelming in a good way to recently be flooded with thousands of notes and cards and photos expressing just how much this moment means to so many people. The notes that I've received from children are particularly cute and especially meaningful because more than anything, they speak directly to the hope and promise of America. It has taken 232 years and 115 prior appointments for a Black woman to be selected to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. But we've made it. We've made it, all of us, all of us. And our children are telling me that they see now, more than ever, that here in America, anything is possible. They also tell me that I'm a role model, which I take both as an opportunity and as a huge responsibility. I am feeling up to the task primarily because I know that I am not alone. I am standing on the shoulders of my own role models, generations of Americans who never had anything close to this kind of opportunity, but who got up every day and went to work believing in the promise of America, showing others through their determination and, yes, their perseverance that good things can be done in this great country. From my grandparents on both sides, who had only a grade school education but instilled in my parents the importance of learning, to my parents, who went to racially segregated schools growing up and were the first in their families to have the chance to go to college. I am also ever buoyed by the leadership of generations past who helped to light the way: Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Justice Thurgood Marshall, and my personal heroine, Judge Constance Baker Motley. They and so many others did the heavy lifting that made this day possible. And for all of the talk of this historic nomination and now confirmation, I think of them as the true path breakers. I am just the very lucky first inheritor of the dream of liberty and justice for all. To be sure, I have worked hard to get to this point in my career, and I have now achieved something far beyond anything my grandparents could have possibly ever imagined. But no one does this on their own. The path was cleared for me so that I might rise to this occasion. And in the poetic words of Dr. Maya Angelou, I do so now while bringing the gifts my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. So as I take on this new role, I strongly believe that this is a moment in which all Americans can take great pride. We have come a long way toward perfecting our union. In my family, it took just one generation to go from segregation to the Supreme Court of the United States. And it is an honor, the honor of a lifetime, for me to have this chance to join the court, to promote the rule of law at the highest level, and to do my part to carry our shared project of democracy and equal justice under law forward into the future. Thank you again, Mr. President and members of the Senate, for this incredible honor.
An extraordinary moment playing out on the South Lawn of the White House, the embrace right there between President Biden and the next Supreme Court Justice, the first black woman to serve on the nation's highest court, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. Judge Jackson extraordinarily humble in her remarks. The level of gratitude, the names that she went down, her family, her husband. She said, "I did not believe I could do this. He told me I could. Now I believe it's possible." She thanked her parents for supporting her every step of the way, the public school teachers. Her father then became a lawyer. She thanked her daughters and said, "Though this is exciting this day, nothing brings me greater joy than being your mother." She said it's taken 232 years for a black woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, but we've made it, pointing to the crowd of supporters saying, "We've made it." Deborah Roberts, she also used the words of Maya Angelou to talk about her ancestry, and also made the point that for her family, this should be something celebrated for all Americans, that it took just one generation to get from segregation to the Supreme Court.
That's exactly right, David. Now we see why Leela was looking at her that way, because look at who we are now welcoming onto the Supreme Court. What I thought was so remarkable was this breathtaking speech was so humble, and she has achieved so much. She represents excellence to so many people. She acknowledged standing on the shoulders of others, but of course now we know others are going to be standing on her shoulders. And that is what is so remarkable. While this is a historic moment, yes, she's the first black woman, but I don't think for a lot of people that is really what this is about. This is a woman who just represents excellence. Excellence and perseverance, which is what she talked about there today. I mean, how much she had to work, her parents worked. She's the American dream. So at the end of the day, yes, is it historic? Yes, but as she said, it's something for all Americans to celebrate today.
That she is the benefit of the American dream is what she said. It took so many others to get her there.
Absolutely, the dream and hope of slaves, as she said. So we can't forget that kind of imagery either, the fact that she came from so far and people who worked so hard, but she is there. And this woman earned it. She absolutely earned it when you look at her history.
Deborah Roberts, always great to have you right here by my side. Mary Bruce standing by. She's live at the White House. And Mary, you reported not only on then candidate Joe Biden, who made this promise to nominate the first black woman to the court. He followed through on that promise. He talked about the meaning of this day, that people will look back on the history of this moment. The Vice President Kamala Harris, another decision he made, an historic decision. She talked about the letter she wrote to her goddaughter as she presided over the Senate chamber for this vote. The president has been surely tested. He has his critics, he has his supporters, but Mary, this will be a day that this administration remembers with joy and with enormous fondness.
It absolutely will, David. And just to see the president up there standing next to these two remarkable black women, both the first in their roles, it is an image that will be hard for many to forget. But you did hear the president saying, yes, you know, this was a promise that he made, a promise fulfilled, something he knew he wanted wanted to do if he was going to be president. But he also made the point that he is going to keep it up, because just as much as he knows that this is a moment, certainly, for the entire country to celebrate, that this is just a moment, that there is a very long road ahead. The president noting, of course, the attacks that Judge Jackson took on throughout this confirmation process, even during her very own hearings on the Hill, that is just an example of how much this country still has to do, how much progress still has to be made. But David, I have to tell you, when I think back to this event, what will always stand out to me is just the look on Judge Jackson's face, especially as the president was speaking about her life story, about her experience, that beaming smile, even as she was wiping away tears. It is a look that was repeated on the face of many women, many men, many of the young people here in the audience today. And to think of all of the persistent sexism, the racism that Judge Jackson has had to navigate to get to this point, to see her to finally have a moment to just relish in this accomplishment, is just pretty remarkable, David.
It was remarkable for us too, Mary, to watch the wipe from the right eye, the tear now and then as the president was speaking, the vice president was speaking. And Mary, just a quick follow-up to you, because something else that struck me, obviously we expected her to thank her parents, her husband, her daughters, but the level of detail with her thank yous, the names that we've never heard, quite frankly, before, the legislative liaisons with the Senate, members of the White House staff who helped her along the way. I mean, she really did not forget anyone who helped her through this extraordinarily rigorous process. And in watching them, it was almost as though they seemed surprised to hear their name in such an historic moment included within her gratitude here today.
Yeah, I think there were some who were surprised to be called out like that. Look, I think we as the public see a certain side of this process, and it is a grueling process. As Judge Jackson noted, she met with 97 of 100 senators. That is no small feat, and it takes a huge team to prepare someone for this, to guide them through this very complicated process, to guide them through the politics of this process alone. And for her to call out all of those people, I think it's a very special moment for them as well. I can tell you, it's very rare that you see this many White House staffers show up for a presidential event like this, and they were certainly, I'm sure, very appreciative of it as well.
Speaks volumes about Judge Jackson, the person. Mary Bruce, our thanks to you. And a quick question to Rachel Scott, who followed the confirmation hearings up on the Hill. And Rachel's with us now, and you heard the president there say, I hope this doesn't hurt them, but I do want to single out the 3 Republicans who did vote. He always believed this could be bipartisan. And you heard President Biden today thank Senator Murkowski of Alaska. He even plugged her re-election campaign. He thanked Senator Romney, brought up Romney's own father, who stood up at key moments in history. And of course, he thanked Senator Collins as well.
Yeah, it is no secret, David, that the president wanted bipartisan support from the very beginning of this process. He talked about how he asked for advice and that he wanted some consent from the Republican senators here on Capitol Hill. In the end, 3 did end up voting yes, none of them there today. Senator Susan Collins has since tested positive for COVID-19. Senator Lisa Murkowski, Senator Mitt Romney, not there at that White House today. But the president once again saying that they need some credit, that they handled this process with integrity, a sharp contrast to his words for some of the Republican attacks from their colleagues, David.
Rachel Scott live on the Hill with us every step of the way here, Rachel. And I want to check in for one last question at the Supreme Court. Devin Dwyer covers the court for us. And Devin, we've been talking here that Judge Jackson's 51 years old. It's widely believed that she'll be on the court for many years to come. She talked about Justice Breyer there, who will finish out his term. But given her life experience, she does bring something very unique to the court now.
David, a pivotal moment for the country, a pivotal moment for this court. No question she won't change the ideological makeup here, but she will have a lasting impact. Not just the first black woman, the first Florida-raised justice, the first federal public defender. For the first time, we'll have 4 women on this court behind me. It's quiet here right now. They're out of session this week, but we expect a large celebration to break out later this afternoon, David. And of course, she will take that oath later this summer once Justice Breyer steps down. David.
Devin Dwyer, thank you at the court there today. And he mentioned the Florida roots, and she actually gave a shout out to the Miami Palmetto Senior High School, and in particular the debate team that she said early on helped her prepare for this role much later in life. And I leave you with this thought. She talked about the notes that came in from all over the country, all over the world, and in particular, she said the notes from the children and what they wrote to her, saying they see in her the possibilities now for them, and perhaps that is the biggest legacy moment of this day. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. I'll be back with the entire team for World News Tonight. My thanks to Mary, Rachel, Devin, and of course, Deborah right here with me in the studio. Thank you. I'll see you later today. Good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
And our thanks so much to David Muir. I'm Kira Phillips. The White House clearly celebrating the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the U.S. Supreme Court. President Biden referring to her diversity and years of public service, bringing a new perspective to the Supreme Court. The president spoke to the historic significance of the nomination just moments ago.
Today is a good day, a day that history is going to remember. And in the years to come, they're going to be proud of what we did, and we're going to try what Dick Durbin did as the chairman of the committee. I'm serious, Dick. I'm deadly earnest when I say that. To turn our children and grandchildren to say, I was there. I was there.
We were all there. The future justice with the president and vice president by her side, telling us all this is the greatest honor of her life and thanking her entire family, even her roommates from college, for all the love and support, and even a respectful shout out to the Republicans who tried to rattle her.
During the confirmation process, I had the distinct honor of having 95 personal meetings with 97 sitting senators. And we had substantive and engaging conversations about my approach to judging and about the role of judges in the constitutional system we all love. As a brief aside, I will note that these are subjects about which I care deeply. I have dedicated my career to public service because I love this country and our Constitution and the rights that make us free.
Let's bring in White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks, also ABC News contributor Leah Wright-Rigger, the history professor at Johns Hopkins University, also our congressional correspondent Rachel Scott with us. Rachel, let's start with you. Just listening to KBJ talking about how she has achieved what her grandparents could never imagine.
And particularly notable, Kira, that she is a descendant of slaves standing at the White House built by slaves, talking about how she has achieved more than they probably ever thought was even possible. You know, the vice president had a moment inside the Senate chamber as this historic vote was underway where she actually called over the two black Democratic senators, Cory Booker and Raphael Warnock, and she gave them a little bit of a homework assignment. She told them that they need to write a letter with official White House letterhead to a young black girl to talk about the historic moment of this. And I thought that moment really hit home for so many people in this country because images have power. And Senator Raphael Warnock wrote a letter to his 5-year-old daughter saying that this is a Supreme Court justice that looks like you, that has hair like you. Judge Jackson talked in her confirmation hearing about how she didn't necessarily felt like she belonged in a lot of the spaces that she has existed in. When she was a student at Harvard, institution that she was actually discouraged from applying to. But when she finally got there, she says that she felt like a fish out of water, a sharp contrast to her husband, who was a 6th-generation Harvard a legacy graduate. But she had this moment on the yard where a black woman came up to her and told her to persevere. So this is a story of perseverance, a story of possibilities for a black woman who once felt like she didn't have a place at Harvard, who now has a place on the United States Supreme Court, Kira.
Pretty darn powerful. Devin, at the end of the day, this really was a job interview. What comes next for Judge Jackson? When will, she get right to work and start hearing cases?
Well, there's asked to be a vacancy on the Supreme Court. First, Kira, and of course, Justice Breyer has said he will stay on the court until the end of June. So right now, she's in a bit of a holding pattern. She's going to, we've been told, keep her position on the D.C. Circuit Court. That's the second highest court in the country. She'll continue to sit there, if you will, receive that job title or paycheck effectively. But she won't hear cases. She will step aside from those cases. And so this summer, once Justice Breyer steps aside, she'll officially take both oaths, the constitutional oath and the judicial oath. There will be a ceremony here at the Supreme Court to mark that moment. Then she'll get to work. Of course, the first cases will be heard later this fall, Kira.
Okay, and also there at the White House, former chair of Democratic National Committee, our own Donna Brazile. There she is. I don't want to take you away from the party because I know you want to talk to folks and enjoy this moment. But Donna, just bring it full circle.
Well, you know, it was almost 41 years ago when I first came to the grounds of the White House to witness then President Reagan sign the Martin Luther King legislation to make his birthday a national holiday. So to be back here over the many, many decades, to see for the first time in my lifetime a black woman who will soon take the oath of office to serve as the 116th Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. This has been a remarkable period, 40 years of nonstop struggle, 40 years of building coalitions, of reaching out to every American, to the House and to the Senate. And today we are honored to be part of this history. You know, I saw Reverend Jesse Jackson. I saw the heads of all of the civil rights organizations, but I also saw, you know, the Fraternal Order Police and Republicans here. So this is clearly an American moment for an American justice.
It sure is. And Leah, what stood out to you as you watched all of this unfold and you listened to Judge Jackson? You know, she was pretty incredible during the confirmation hearings at the very end, speaking from her heart. But this was a 10-minute or so speech that will go down in the history books for sure.
Absolutely. We'll be assigning it and watching it for generations to come. And, you know, I think one of the things that the American public really drew the American public to Judge Jackson, remember she's incredibly popular, is the way that she balanced resilience, I think, and restraint with this kind of very unique vulnerability. There were moments that she put herself out there to the American public. You know, we can all think of that moment where she's having an interaction with Senator Booker and a tear rolled down her cheek. And I think we saw that on display again in her speech today, which was that really dynamic mix of strength, resilience, a little bit of humor, a lot of intelligence, and then also a dash of vulnerability. And I was particularly struck by that line, "I am the dream and the hope of the slave," because what she did in that one line is really talk about how this is not simply a story of African-American history, but that in fact, it is one of American history, that she is part of a lineage of people that built this country, that built the White House. And here she is, one generation removed from segregation, I mean, 2 generations removed from slavery, now sitting in the highest court of the land. That was powerful. And then the last thing that I'd point out is that she took time to bring in her family and to root it in her family. And once again, I want to point to that relationship that Judge Jackson has with her 2 daughters. I mean, she really centered them. And she did something that I think we've seen other black women in prominent positions do, but we really saw with somebody like Michelle Obama, who announced, right, when she moved into the White House, she said, "My job is mom in chief." Well, here's Judge Jackson saying, "My job, the thing that I have loved the most, that I have not regretted, is being your mother and raising you girls." And I think putting that on display, seeing that relationship and seeing her highlight that again was incredibly powerful, not just to working mothers of all different races and ethnicities, but also to their daughters, to their children who see this relationship and have to experience this relationship. I mean, that was a lot. It was a very powerful speech, and it was an incredibly powerful moment.
And let's not forget, you know, we've been talking about how this has impacted so many lawmakers and they're writing letters to their daughter. How about, as you talk about the daughters, we'll never forget during the confirmation hearings, one of the daughters writing a "you got this" handwritten note, putting it in a mom's seat before she went before that committee. I mean, just, you are so right about the influence of family here. And you channel Maya, you channel Langston Hughes thinking of his poem, "I Too." I mean, this is it. This is "I Too Am America." Mary Alice, such a big win for the Biden administration, clearly. Perfect timing before the midterms. Let's just talk about the politics within this as we are facing elections, I mean, months away.
Well, her nomination first and then her confirmation, incredibly popular. Poll after poll showing that Americans were excited by this and completely approved of Biden's pick. You know, I was struck by that moment where he said not only did she endure grueling hours of questioning, but he called it verbal abuse from Republican lawmakers during those confirmation hearings. And then you saw him talk with such pride and just flattering her, saying that she held herself with poise and patience, character, composure, and even found moments of joy during those incredibly difficult confirmation hearings. You heard him take a moment to really thank the 3 Republicans that stepped across the aisle to vote with Democrats to confirm her. He even, my ears perked up when he said Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski was up for re-election. I was wondering if we were going to get a bipartisan endorsement right there on the White House lawn. Not the case. I think what he was saying was that Lisa Murkowski was probably facing pressure from the right, from voters at home to stick to that party line. But I think he was taking a moment to note that maybe that was even a bigger deal for her to cross party lines. But he wanted to make a point of how she conducted herself, how Judge Jackson conducted herself in the face of such scrutiny that he clearly thinks crossed the line. And just picking up where you and Leah were talking about being a mom, you know, to be able to see her as a working mom, and we've talked a lot over the last few days and weeks about all the ways that she will transform the court. Well, you have to believe that all of her personal experiences, and including that, her personal experience as a mom and as a working mom, will change the court, because that is a whole nother layer of perspective that has frankly been missing. There will now be 2 working moms there on the court, and that means you know, a great deal to so many around the country.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. You know, few people know judges like the law clerks that work for them. They witness it all, from the work to the worry, along with all the courtroom rulings in between. Casey Trombley Shapiro Jonas is an enthusiastic advocate for women's rights and clerked for Judge Jackson in 2018 at the U.S. District Court for Washington, D.C. And she joins us now. Casey, so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, and we've talked so much about Judge Jackson's credentials. They're incredible, but not nearly as much about her as a person. So give us the scoop. Give us the inside everything about what we don't know.
I mean, I think you probably do actually know a fair amount. She's as warm as she comes off. Her family is hugely important. She treats everyone who crosses her path with compassion and care. So working with her and knowing her for the past few years has been an honor. It's been humbling. She's been incredibly supportive of me and my family, my fellow clerks. She's incredible.
And by the way, we are looking at a picture of you with her when you were pregnant. We will talk about your new baby in just a minute. But first, back to the judge. I'm curious, Casey, of the time that you spent together, did you talk about diversity? Did you ever talk about her dreams or her thoughts, or even just the issue of, wouldn't it be great to see just more color, you know, throughout the entire judicial system, all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court?
We did. I don't know that we talked about it so specifically in those terms, but it's impossible. She's very forthcoming with who she is. She's a real and sincere and authentic person, no matter who she's talking to. So her experience as a Black woman absolutely colored her life and came up in conversations. We talked a lot about being mothers and working mothers and litigators and how hard that can be and what is needed to make that happen, like childcare and minivans to get around. So it's, yes, she's a real person.
So she recognized it. You talked about it. It was important to her. You know, let's talk about this letter to Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin and Ranking Member Chuck Grassley. You say that you fully support Judge Jackson's nomination to the Supreme Court, and cite her background as a public defender and appellate litigator as reasons why she will make a good justice. Tell us how her experience in the field of public service will help her on the Supreme Court.
I think it will be hugely important and helpful. As she said today, as she made clear in her confirmation hearings, and as I think she's made clear in her entire career, she believes truly and deeply in this country and in the Constitution and in serving this country and doing her job as a judge, which is to pay attention to what the facts are, to what the law is, and to come out to the right decision. And as she recently actually was telling some of her law clerks and reminding us, because she had said it all the time while clerking with her, that everything has to make sense, that the court's integrity relies on decisions making sense to the American people, to the parties who are coming before the courts. So she takes it incredibly seriously to make sure that every single step in her analysis is thought through, is based in the facts and the law, and that the decision is the right outcome, but also explained. And I think that comes from both just who she is, but her experiences in various positions, particularly as a public defender, as a district court judge, on the Sentencing Commission, everything that she's done.
Finally, Casey, what do you think will surprise most people when they start to read the future justices' opinions?
Honestly, I don't know, given how thorough her opinions are and how many she's already published. It would surprise me if she surprises us.
That's a good answer. And again, congratulations on being a mom. Now you have it all, Casey.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you. Well, we can all hear the glass shattering and the barriers breaking as Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson makes history. And as history was being made, Judge Jackson joined President Biden at the White House to watch and celebrate her confirmation. And just a couple miles away, down the road, future lawyers, judges, and maybe even a Supreme Court justice from Howard University, they were celebrating as well. Take a look.
And this nomination is confirmed.
Joining me now, Howard University law students Stacey Evans, Drew Lewis, and Sheun Awatunde. Did I say that right, Sheun? How'd I do? Okay, good. All right, guys, let's talk about how you are feeling right now when you just watched that very moment. What went through your head when the votes went through and everything was finalized? Stacey, let's start with you.
Sure, thank you. Excitement, just excitement, gratitude. When the vote went through, you know, we knew it was going to happen, but just confirming that just solidified everything she went through to be here. And, you know, just solidified that she deserves it. She belongs. She's worthy.
Sheun, what did you think as you watched Judge Jackson testify before the Senate, especially during those moments of tough questioning by GOP senators?
I thought about her perseverance. We've all been there as professional students, how we may feel like we don't belong. I thought about how much it would be worth it and how much she would think it was worth it when she would finally become confirmed. And thankfully she was.
Let's play a little bit of Judge Jackson's remarks that she just made, and I want to get you all to react. Let's listen.
The path was cleared for me so that I might rise to this occasion. And in the poetic words of Dr. Maya Angelou, I do so now while bringing the gifts my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. So as I take on this new role, I strongly believe that this is a moment in which all Americans can take great pride.
I am the dream and the hope of the slave. Holy cow, I got chills. Drew, as an aspiring judge, what are your thoughts just hearing those words?
Yeah, you know, she just became a pillar of justice. She's about to sit on the highest court of our land, and that shakes the justice system that we've known for all the years that it's existed, especially in a nation where justice has been averted or denied from Black people for so long. She's now the representation that we've been looking for, the representation on the bench. That's exactly what we need to move the needle forward to a more progressive society, to a more perfect society, as I talked about earlier.
Stace, I'm going to have you take it from there. You know, Judge Jackson will be the first Black woman, as we know, and the second youngest justice to sit on the court. Her appointment also marks the first time 2 African Americans will sit on the Supreme Court simultaneously, and the first time that there will be 4 women on the High Court serving together. So do you think this confirmation will change the way marginalized communities look at the legal and justice system?
I will remain hopeful that it does. Kind of picking up off of what Drew said, you know, Justice Jackson, she mentioned it. She got here by standing on the backs of giants. Now giants will be able to stand on her back and, you know, continue to succeed. Something that, you know, you didn't mention that I like to include is she also has federal public defender experience, which is the only experience. She's the only one with that experience on the court. And so coming back to your question, I think that is important specifically for the Black community who we often rely on the public defender service to represent us, federal or local. And so I think it's important that she's bringing this perspective to the court. And I think it will, you know, I think it will be a pillar of light, a pillar of hope amongst marginalized communities, specifically the Black community, including myself.
Stacey, Drew, Shayoun, thank you all so much. Hopefully, I will never get in trouble and need a lawyer, so I will look for you when maybe it's a contract negotiation, all right? I appreciate you guys. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you so much.
My honor. Coming up, packed with people, a Russian rocket targets a train station, killing dozens of people in Ukraine. We've got the details next. Welcome back. So glad you're streaming with us on this Friday. Well, a Russian rocket hit a train station in southeastern Ukraine, killing dozens of people as they desperately tried to evacuate. The station, a key evacuation hub, packed with families and young children, were all targeted. Foreign correspondent James Longman is in Kyiv with the latest. And we do need to warn you that some of these images are extremely difficult to watch.
The Kramatorsk train station in Donetsk hit. Civilians have been crowding the station every day after they were warned to evacuate before Russia's renewed offensive in eastern Ukraine. The attack left at least 39 dead and 87 wounded. Speaking before NATO, Ukraine's foreign minister has warned that the battle for the region will be devastating.
The battle for Donbass will remind you of the Second World War, with large operations, maneuvers, involvement of thousands of tanks, armored vehicles, planes, artillery.
President Zelensky calling for even bolder sanctions and additional military help, saying Ukraine needs weapons that will allow us to win on the battlefield, and this will be the strongest sanction against Russia of all possible ones. They want to stop a repeat of this. The northern town of Borodyanka reduced to rubble by Russian planes. Recovery teams finding bodies under flattened homes on a near daily basis. Ukrainian President Zelensky warning the findings here could be worse than the atrocities already uncovered in Bucha. We saw for ourselves the horror in that town. Bodan took us inside this apartment building, which he says was struck by the Russians. He shows us his friend, incinerated by the blaze it caused. He tells us, "I want the whole world to know the truth about what's happening here," he says. "I only blame the Russian military for this." Maria cries in the kitchen of her Bucha home, remembering her son Dima, shot dead, she says, by Russian forces. He would run up and down helping people down in the basement, she says.
I can tell that she's very proud of him.
How can I not be proud of my son when he was such a great person? Russia has been voted off the United Nations Human Rights Council, and now the European Union has approved a fifth round of sanctions, freezing the assets of several Russian banks, banning coal imports, and banning access to EU ports for ships flying the Russian flag. A major admission from Russia.
We have significant losses of troops, and it's a huge tragedy for us.
The true number of Russian losses is difficult to know, but the US estimates more than 10,000 have been killed. And Russian attacks elsewhere continue. In Kharkiv, black plumes of smoke in the sky after another Russian missile attack strikes a bread factory.
Ukraine has done an extraordinary job so far of defending itself with Western help, but the fight in the east will be different. Russia already occupies large parts of that region. They'll be better able to supply and to support their troops, and that is why Ukraine is asking for more help now. Kira?
Our James Longman there in Kyiv. James, thanks. Coming up, ripping it and ripping it to the green for the green. Tiger Woods back at the Masters and back for another jacket. welcome back. Well, fans packed the perimeter of the first hole at the Masters, hoping to grab a glimpse of the Tiger as he teed off. Woods had a solid opening round on Thursday, his first time competing since that intense car crash that left him severely injured. ABC's TJ Holmes has the latest.
What a day at Augusta. Tiger Woods back in action for the first time in a year and a half and on golf's biggest stage, the Masters. He shot 1 under and is within striking distance of the lead.
To finish in a red today after as long a layoff as I've had and not being in competitive golf, I was able to make a few putts and end up in a red like I am right now.
Huge crowds clamored around Augusta National Golf Club just for a glimpse of Tiger.
It was absolutely electric. People were 20, 25 deep, just packed in to watch Tiger hit that first tee shot. They knew they were watching something special.
His return comes just 14 months after that devastating car accident that nearly cost him his leg.
We have a rollover with someone trapped.
Woods suffered lacerations and bruising on his head, nose, and chin, and multiple fractures to his right leg requiring emergency surgery. There were questions of whether the golf legend would ever walk again, let alone play at the Masters. The 5-time Masters champ walked the course with a surgically built right leg and foot, held together with a rod, plates, and screws. On the 9th hole, Woods appeared to wince after he teed off, and he was rarely seen bending down to check his putts.
What will the next 16, 18 hours look like for you?
Lots of ice.
Woods will be back in action today, telling the media he's right where he needs to be.
It's about the training that we've done, is to have the stamina to go. I'm going to be sore, yes, that's just the way it is. But the training cycles that we've had to make sure that I have the stamina to keep going. And it's only 1 round. We got 3 more to go.
This performance by Tiger Woods on Thursday in the first round of the Masters absolutely was a victory. We have no idea how this is going to play out. But Tiger showed everyone that he's here, that he's serious, and that he's back.
Well, Kira, the commentators, right after he finished his round, they used 3 words that jumped out at me. They said incredible, spectacular, and remarkable. Just the fact that he's out there is really something to see, and the fact that he is now competing, maybe we shouldn't be surprised because Tiger has done this year after year, time after time, just defied the odds. But he's at it again. We did see him grimace a few times around the course. He wasn't bending down as far, squatting, when he's reading his putts. But other than that, 1 day in, it's held up. We'll see what will happen over the next several days, Kira.
All right, we'll be watching. It's a pretty amazing tournament. TJ, thanks. I'm Kira Phillips. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. And if you need to know where to find us, we're on all your favorite devices, plus the ABC News app and on abcnews.com. The news continues right after this. afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. Thanks so much for streaming with us on this Friday. A suspected gunman killed by Israeli forces after a terror attack on a busy street in Tel Aviv. 3 people killed, at least 10 others injured. This shooting comes amid a wave of terror attacks in recent weeks, at least 12 people losing their lives. More than 600,000 people still without power in Puerto Rico after a fire at one of the biggest power plants on the island. Luma, the private company overseeing Puerto Rico's electric grid, said it has yet to find the exact cause of the outage, already closing schools and government buildings, a huge concern ahead of hurricane season. Sanctions now being considered by the Motion Picture Academy against actor Will Smith after slapping Chris Rock at this year's Oscars. Academy Board President David Rubin says because Smith apologized and resigned, it's unclear what sanctions remain other than expulsion. Well, history in action. Just a little bit ago, President Biden introducing the first black woman to sit on the Supreme Court, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Now, folks, it's my honor, and it truly is an honor. I've been looking forward to it for a while, to introduce you the next Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Celebratory moment, but we can't ignore the backdrop of the pandemic as well and an increasing number of new COVID cases in Washington. Joining me now to discuss, ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks, also ABC News contributor Dr. John Brownstein. Mary Alice, incredible mood at the White House, historic, an honor. I mean, it's something we're going to be talking about. As Leah Rigor said, professor of history at Johns Hopkins, it's something that she will be having her students listen to and watch for years and years to come. What stood out to you today?
Yeah, definitely a celebration.
Martha Raddatz has the latest.
Stunning new allegations about the 2 men and duping members of the Secret Service. Allegations now sparking national security concerns. The men in court yesterday. Federal prosecutors saying that over the course of 2 years, Haider Ali, along with his accomplice Ariane Taherzadeh, provided Secret Service agents with lavish gifts, free apartments totaling $40,000. That Taherzadeh offered to buy a $2,000 assault rifle for a member of the First Lady's protective detail. The government saying one of the men claimed to have a connection to the ISI, which is the Pakistani intelligence service, and that agents found visas showing a history of travel to Pakistan and Iran. 4 Secret Service employees are now seen gathering evidence at the D.C. apartment building where the defendants allegedly operated. And prosecutors say searches of their homes and cars have already turned up weapons, ammunition, body armor, gas masks, a drone, and a binder with a list of every resident in their D.C. apartment complex. Neighbors shaken.
It's scary, it's our place of living.
And a detention hearing is scheduled for today to actually determine whether the men should remain locked up. Our thanks to Martha Raddatz for that. And coming up, a sign of healing and resilience. A Texas synagogue reopening its doors, clearing the canvas of a painful hostage situation with new art and heartwarming messages. Black, so glad you're with us, or welcome back, rather. It's been 3 months since a gunman walked into that congregation, Beth Israel, in Colleyville, Texas, holding 4 people hostage for about 10 hours before they were able to escape. Well, today that congregation is reopening its doors after some much-needed repairs. Malini Basu at our affiliate WFAA has a closer look.
A lot of the artwork that you will see in the building is a member of our congregation.
Through paintings and heartwarming messages, Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville is healing.
3 sections of this was damaged by the police as they came into the building, the hostage rescue team.
The synagogue was left damaged by gunfire. Inside, a lot has changed to uplift everyone's mood.
By changing the carpet and changing the wall colors, that also helped a bit with the gentleman who had been involved with the incident.
In January, a gunman held 4 people hostage for 10 hours. The suspect, Malik Faisal Akram, was killed in the standoff. Arlene Schwartz was the first one who ran out.
The FBI, particularly the police, everybody has just been wonderful.
Jeff Cohen was among the 4 held hostage and choked up during certain moments.
I am so excited to be coming back.
And for Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker, who was also held hostage, Friday evening's prayer service will be an emotional one for him.
We all are human beings, desperately trying to do the best we can in this thing called life. The more we can see that sense of humanity in each other, we can understand that our struggles are the same as your struggles.
The synagogue is expecting about 100 families here, and there will be security guards at the gate here controlling who enters. But the message they want to send across to families here, this is a place for love, and they want to move forward. We're in Colleyville. I'm Malini Basu.
And a reminder about this story, the rabbi did say and wants to remind us they were actually able to escape after he threw a chair at the gunman, distracting him and helping the other hostages to get to safety. Well, we've all seen the images of refugees fleeing Ukraine, carrying their most precious possessions, including those pets. Our Inez de la Cuatera got an inside look at the global rescue efforts in Ukraine to save abandoned pets and even exotic zoo animals from this war.
From the small to the ferocious, the largest exodus since World War II isn't just people, it's animals too, escaping bombed-out zoos and apartment buildings. More than just pets, they're members of the family, providing refugees comfort and company as they're forced to leave their homes. That powerful bond on display as millions of Ukrainians flee with what they value most, man's best friend. At this train station in Przemysl, Poland, we meet Booz and his owner Svetlana, becoming emotional as she recounts having to leave her son behind to fight. She says Booz, nestled in her lap, is like family. On social media, over 1 million followers keep tabs on Ukrainian cat Stepan. His owner details their harrowing escape from Kharkiv to Poland and then to France. Stepan's account now raising funds to help the many animals left behind as Ukrainians are rallying to save some of the country's most helpless beings. This Ukrainian actor going viral, running into the burning buildings of Irpin, breaking down doors, finding terrified animals, bringing them to shelters. The group Zoo Patrol drilling holes through the walls of apartments, responding to worried calls from families who fled. This man saving over 100 horses with his foundation as veterinarians in neighboring countries work overtime. At a border crossing in Medyka, Poland, we find an American, Mike Merrill, from the nonprofit Florida Urgent Rescue, FUR for short, taking his expertise helping animals in natural disasters to the front lines of war.
It's your first war zone.
In a hurricane or the tornado, when the storm moves through, then the disaster relief can come in. In this case, disaster relief is prevented from coming in.
He's already crossed into Ukraine 5 times, saving at least 50 dogs and working to reunite this little boy with his guinea pig.
The problem is, as the fighting increased, and the evacuations increased. A lot of people were turned away at the train station or the bus station. They were told, you can't get on the train or the bus with that dog. So they were tying up the dogs at the train station.
It's even trickier getting wild animals to safety. Sometimes that looks like this, a van full of kangaroos. The Poznan Zoo in Poland stepping in to help evacuate some of the animal kingdom's most fearsome creatures.
All the animals are suffering so much during this war and are the innocent victims of these horrible situations.
In a modern-day Noah's Ark, gingerly evacuating the animal kingdom's most fearsome creatures with breaks for water and snacks. Lions and tigers making it to Poland like those pets carried in the arms of Ukraine's refugees.
I think that during the war times, to be a human, it means to rescue all the living creatures.
Greeted with a friendly smile, a bag of food, and a pat on the head, an acknowledgement, no matter the politics or ideology, that universal love for animals brings out the best in humanity.
And our thanks to Inez de la Bocatero for that. Well, I'm Kira Phillips. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. And if you need to know where to find us, we're on all your favorite devices, plus the ABC News app and on abcnews.com. The news continues right after this.
I want to help people, and I want to be a billionaire. I'm on the cutting edge of healthcare. This machine tests your blood in your own home.
You're in over your head. You're going to lose everything.
You don't understand the science! Her whole image is fake.
I don't believe a word she says. You don't understand the vision.
I've never met anyone quite like you, Miss Holmes.
There's not.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. Thanks so much for streaming with us on this Friday. A suspected gunman killed by Israeli forces after a terror attack on a busy street in Tel Aviv. 3 people killed, at least 10 others injured. This shooting comes amid a wave of terror attacks in recent weeks, at least 12 people losing their lives. More than 600,000 people still without power in Puerto Rico after a fire at one of the biggest power plants on the island. Luma, the private company overseeing Puerto Rico's electric grid, said it has yet to find the exact cause of the outage, already closing schools and government buildings, a huge concern ahead of hurricane season. Sanctions now being considered by the Motion Picture Academy against actor Will Smith after slapping Chris Rock at this year's Oscars. Academy Board President David Rubin says because Smith apologized and resigned, it's unclear what sanctions remain other than expulsion. Well, history in action. Just a little bit ago, President Biden introducing the first black woman to sit on the Supreme Court, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Now, folks, it's my honor, and it truly is an honor. I've been looking forward to for a while, to introduce you the next Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Celebratory moment, but we can't ignore the backdrop of the pandemic as well and an increasing number of new COVID cases in Washington. Joining me now to discuss, ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks, also ABC News contributor Dr. John Brownstein. Mary Alice, incredible mood at the White House, historic, an honor. I mean, it's something we're going to be talking about. As Leah Rigor said, professor of history at Johns Hopkins, it's something that she will be having her students listen to and watch for years and years to come. What stood out to you today?
Yeah, definitely a celebration, a party-like atmosphere there at the White House. You saw the president just beaming ear to ear. He had his sunglasses on. He said not only was it a sunny day, but this day would shine sunlight on young women around the country. They were, you know, they were thumbs up like he likes to do. They were backslapping. I think they wanted to take a moment to really not only acknowledge that this was a campaign promise kept, but a moment for the country to feel good and feel proud. And that was actually the message from Judge Jackson herself. You know, I think all of us kind of stopped it. She took our breath away a little bit when she had this one line. She said at the end of her remarks, "I am the dream and the hope of a slave." And that is a reality that Americans, all Americans, can take pride in. That her message was that we should all take a moment to realize just how far this country has come, but also how far this country has to go, that this day took 233 years in the making. Kira?
Sure did. Just incredible. I mean, not only quoting the poet Maya Angelou, but just her own words of what this means. It was so poetic both ways. And Mary Alice, you know, also too, when listening to her speech, listening to her message, she was very gracious. After what she went through in those confirmation hearings, she of course thanked everyone from her husband to her daughters to her in-laws. Everybody was there, her roommates from law school. But she also had a bit of a shout out, respectful shout out to those GOP committee members that really just tried to rattle her during those hearings.
Yeah, it was remarkable first just how humble she was. Like you said, she took time to thank just about everyone sitting there. She said about this moment, "We made it. All of us." And that was clearly what she wanted to project. Just remarkable humility. She talked about every single person, it seemed, in her life, but also, like you said, those White House staffers that helped her through this incredibly grueling process. You know, I was struck, not only did she sort of give a shout out and a gracious sort of thank you to the 3 Republicans that crossed party lines to vote to confirm her, but President Biden, he said that the kind of questioning that she got not during those hearings amounted to, in his words, verbal abuse. He was clearly frustrated by the kinds of questions that she got, but proud that she conducted herself so calmly. He said that she conducted herself with poise and patience, character and composure, but he was clearly frustrated that she had to endure and sit through some of those questions that he felt were absolutely inappropriate and crossed the line.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Brownstein, while I have you here, you know, there's still a lot of COVID concerns growing here in D.C. Capitol Hill, you know, when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tested positive for COVID, followed then by other lawmakers later in the day, including Senators Raphael Warnock and also Susan Collins. So what do you think? Do you think that what we saw today has the potential to become a super spreader event? Because apparently Nancy Pelosi tested positive, you know, hovering over the president's shoulder at the event at the White House last week.
Well, Kira, I don't want to take away from this landmark moment, but, you know, D.C. is having an obvious surge. We're seeing those super spreader events where we had the Gridiron Dinner that obviously contributed to dozens of cases. So I wouldn't be surprised if this event did contribute to more cases, whether that's a super spreader event or not. It's unclear. It was outside, so that's lower risk, but then there were no masks and close proximity. And we have this BA.2 variant that is spreading very quickly. And, you know, we did see this with the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, although that had indoor elements and no vaccines. But this is a reminder, this pandemic is not over, and we have this BA.2 variant that is spreading fast. I know the CDC has this definition of a close contact, 15 minutes in a 24-hour period, but that might be going out the window a little bit because this variant spreads so quickly. So we do have to be concerned about cases going up in the coming days, and especially the people that attended the event, you know, likely good idea to get tested to make sure.
And Mary Alice, what do we know about the president? He has been getting tested daily, right? But he's older, so there is definitely a risk there.
Yeah, the White House has been careful to say that to not say that it's daily. I think they're trying to couch that. He's tested when they think that it is appropriate. It seems to be every few days. You know, he is older, but he's also, because he's older, he's double boosted, and that has been sort of the line that the White House has been trying to walk. They've been saying that, of course, they're taking precautions to make sure the president does not get COVID. They have these regular testing protocols. They often test any staff, reporters that are going to be close to the president, people that are attending these events. But they're also trying to say that he might test positive, that clearly he's trying to get back out there, to be in the world, you know, to have this transition moment like the rest of the country is experiencing, where people are getting on with their lives, and that we are seeing that from him and from the White House, and that does include some risk, but that he is vaccinated and double boosted, and that is really the message from this White House still.
And just bring us up to date, John, just where we are right now, as, you know, Shanghai's on lockdown, yet here we see this White House event and don't see very many masks.
It is a little bit tough to sort of process, because we know that this variant is spreading fast in many parts of the country, especially in the Northeast. We're seeing these small surges. At the same time,
as well. The security assistance the Biden administration is providing to Ukraine is enabling critical success on the battlefield against the Russian invading force. The number one reason that they're able to fight back is their bravery and courage. The number two reason is the security assistance that we are providing, and we are providing in coordination with our allies and partners. We're working around the clock to fulfill Ukraine's priority security assistance requests, delivering weapons from U.S. stocks when they are available, and facilitating the delivery of weapons by allies and partners when their systems better suit Ukraine's needs. All of the anti-armor and anti-air systems from the two packages of security assistance the president approved in March have been delivered. We are continuing work with allies and partners to identify additional weapon systems to help the Ukrainian military defend its country. Obviously, there was the announcement about the S-300s earlier today, and our efforts to work to backfill that. At President Zelensky's request, this includes helping Ukraine acquire long-range anti-aircraft systems and munitions that they are trained to use. More than 30 nations have sent Ukraine security assistance, thanks in part to the leadership of President Biden and diplomacy that he has been implementing for months now. On April 5th, we announced an additional $100 million in security assistance to Ukraine through Presidential Drawdown Authority. We also announced $300 million in security assistance on April 1st under authorities provided by the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. These announcements bring the U.S. commitment to more than $1.7 billion in security assistance since Russia's February 24th invasion and $2.4 billion since the beginning of the administration. I will not read through all of this for you. You can all, of course, read it yourself, and we will provide all of the list to all of you if you did not receive the Department of Defense fact sheet. Also wanted to note that today, according to a new independent study, the Biden administration's historic vaccination program saved 2.3 million lives in the United States, prevented 17 million hospitalizations and 66 million cases, and avoided $900 billion in healthcare costs. Over the past 15 months, the president has mounted a successful nationwide vaccination effort while executing a comprehensive strategy on treatments, testing, and more. As a result, schools are open, our economy is booming, and importantly, today's report shows we've spared millions of families the immeasurable loss that too many others have suffered. And because of the president's comprehensive response, we've entered a new moment in our fight against the virus. While COVID isn't over, Americans now have more tools than ever before to protect themselves, and this country is moving forward safely, back to many of our more normal routines. Unfortunately, Republicans in Congress are holding up critical funding. We need to make even more progress, to save even more lives, and to stay prepared against any potential surges or variants. Inaction will leave our nation less prepared for future surges and variants. It will mean fewer vaccines, treatments, and tests for the American people. This is deeply disappointing, and it should be unacceptable to every American. Also wanted to give you a sense of the week ahead. Just one trip next week that we announced earlier today. At this point, there could be more. On Thursday, the president will travel to Greensboro, North Carolina to discuss his administration's efforts to make more in America, rebuild our supply chains here at home, and bring down costs for the American people as part of building a better America. Following that trip, he will travel to Camp David, where he will remain over the Easter weekend. And then finally, as I've been doing a little bit this week, I just want to shout out some amazing colleagues I have. Lewis, who we have stolen from FEMA, not really stolen, he's a detailee. Oh, well, he's a fellow, actually. We've had him since November. Soon they will steal him back. And Lewis has been remarkable. Lewis has been reading Russian media, which comes in great use. He has been tracking down a range of coverage about the war in Ukraine. He has been relentless in giving us updates and providing us information, and we're incredibly grateful to Lewis, and we'll be sad to see you go back to FEMA to do very important work. Many of you know Amanda Finney. I call her the mayor because she knows every person, seemingly, who works in the building and on the complex, which is about 2,000 people. I would not survive this job without Amanda Finney. You probably would all not have received all the help you have received about a range of things without Amanda Finney. She is smart, sassy, level-headed, stable. She's remarkable, and we may all work for her one day in some capacity. I certainly may, but I am very grateful to her, so just wanted to shout that out. And her yellow suit is very joyful for a joyful day. Okay, with that, it's a Friday.
Friday. Thanks so much. I've got a couple things.
Sure.
First on this, the missile attack at this train station. Does the administration think that Russia might have intentionally targeted the train station, knowing that there would be a lot of civilians there?
Well, what we've seen over the course of the last 6 weeks or more than that has been what the president himself has characterized as war crimes, which is the intentional targeting of civilians. This is yet another horrific atrocity committed by Russia, striking civilians who are trying to evacuate and reach safety. Where we are now is we're going to support efforts to investigate this attack as we document Russia's actions, hold them accountable, and we will continue to surge security assistance and weapons deliveries to help Ukraine defend their country. Obviously, the targeting of civilians would certainly be a war crime, and we've already called a range of the actions we've seen to date a war crime, but we're going to be supporting efforts to investigate exactly what happened here.
Okay, changing topics. Senior administration officials